Okay. Hello, everybody. This is the deep dive. My name is Jaws, and to my to my right, I just started. We got in the call like 2 minutes ago, and I'm like, we should have just started recording as soon as I picked up. Guys, we're just immediately talking about fucking shit. And speaking of which, not monetized, so we can swear. And it's yeah. How are you, Bren? How are you? How's it going?
I've been quite busy because I've been prepping for Brazil.
Oh yeah, okay.
Brazil Valorant event that's coming up. So the past like 2 weeks, I'm just been. I wake up in my morning. I don't do the cold shower, but I wake up at 6 to 7 a.m. and then
Yeah.
I eat my breakfast. I take my medication and then I do my preparation. I do my prep work. And then I knock out like a bunch of VODs that are like 3 months old because there's no fucking footage on any teams. So
every off season, you don't do the Sigma male grind set. Get up, ice cold shower, dunk in the ice bath, go into the chamber of silence, and then get on with my day.
Meditate for 1 hour.
Meditate for an hour. Do hot yoga in my gaming dungeon.
I do not do that. No,
Oh,
I haven't gone that
sad.
far yet. But no, I'm in a pretty good routine right now, just chilling. And I haven't really had a break. Today was like I started a VOD review. I was doing one, and the VOD was just like horrible, and the team I'm watching just wasn't good, and I was just like, I'm
zoning out.
Yeah,
I mean, watching
out,
bad
so
teams in any esport just sucks. Like, let's be real ourselves here. Like, it's not fun. Like,
well, it's even worse in Valorant.
Because in Valorant, you get crushed, right?
No, but at the moment they've got like the off season in Valorant. It was like show match tournaments, and so you didn't know if some teams were taking it seriously, some teams were trolling, some teams were running like subs that they had picked up because every team now needs a sub in Valorant. It's like what the Overwatch League did when they first started, where they like required you have more than the minimum on your roster. They've done that, and so the teams aren't really used to it. So these show matches sometimes they're just rotating in these players, and you're like. I know they're trolling, but I kind of have to watch because I've got nothing else to watch. Like, it's the only thing I've got. So it makes preparation a bit of a nightmare.
I mean, can you sit on scrims in Valorant? Is that a thing? Because, like, in Overwatch, that's what we do. And you've done it in the past too in the Overwatch League. Like, you can just hit up teams and be like, yo, can we sit on scrims? Like, what's going on?
I don't think they'd let us. I don't know. I've never asked. Yeah. I mean, maybe they would. But it's, because you'd need permission from the other team as well. Right, it's not just the one team. You'd have to ask one team if you can sit in, and you ask the other team as well. So you'd have to like sit in on their scrim block. I did it once in the Overwatch League with London Spitfire and witnessed the behind the scenes meltdown in 2018. Which
okay.
Me and Josh have spoken about this. This is when the monitor got fucking broken and like
I think I remember that.
They were scrimming the LA Valiant,
right,
when Custer was playing on that team, and I don't think we've ever told a story because we weren't allowed to watch them. They were just like, "Oh yeah, we won't tell them." And then
I've heard the monitor breaking story.
Yeah, somewhere. me and Josh just got like invited in to watch London Scrim. This is like ahead of the playoffs in 2018,
right?
And they essentially just imploded before our eyes. We witnessed we were flies on the wall to witness the implosion. And it was just insanity. It was just fucking insanity. I couldn't believe it. I genuinely couldn't believe it. The scrim must have gone poorly or whatever, and there was an altercation between the main support and flex support player on London at the time. That's why I think it was Nuss who got subbed, right?
I think so. Yeah,
it was so long
ago.
Or
something?
No, Badosin I think was the guy who ended up getting the main support players got swapped out.
Oh right, yeah.
Nuss and someone else. I can't remember. Anyway, there was a monitor that got fucking broken, and that team literally mentally boomed. And I just remember being on the desk like the week after. I'm like, this team's done. They're like literally on the broadcast being like, I just think they're finished, because like they played that. This was like after they got fucking boomed in their first playoff match. And the format back then was like you had to play multiple playoff matches. Like they did best of 3s of the best of 5s, I think. So there's like so many matches inside to determine who should go to playoffs. I can't remember, but yeah, I remember that first map they got rolled, and then we witnessed the implosion firsthand, like the fucking smashing of egos and arguments, and then the monitor getting broken, and then I was like, there's no fucking way they are winning, and then they won the next 2 matches versus Gladiators, because I heard internally that their attitude was, well, we're probably never going to play together again, so let's just have fun. And then they just fucking rolled and then won the first season of the Overwatch League. So
It's not about the power of friendship; it's about the power of having fun.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
you just win
apparently.
things.
But isn't that crazy though? Because that was like a defining moment in my esports career where I realized that sometimes it's not about. Sometimes the strangest fucking variable can come into play that can affect the entire course of who would be expected to win a tournament.
Oh yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
just even the smallest of things can just change, and like it can just look hopeless, and then suddenly they won the next two matches, and then they won the Overwatch League.
It feels like that's the beauty of esports, though, in a way, right? Where it's like sometimes, to be fair, you could say traditional sports. I'm not too much of a follower of traditional sports, to be fair. Like I watch the NBA every now and then, but like nothing crazy. But it's just like, wow, that shit just happened. Okay, cool. Like didn't expect that team to win or like do well, but because for some reason they playing better today, I guess, and the other team sucked. It's like the Justice run a few years ago where they put in
when they got
Decay
Decay on Zarya. Yeah, they
like,
fucking bended the COVID rules to put Decay on their roster. And then he played Zarya, and then, dude, if they qualify for playoffs, I would have been so mad. I would have been so fucking mad. I mean, I know it would have been cool to see them do it, but also I didn't like the way they bent the rules. The Washington Justice to this day, they have a bad taste in my mouth.
Well, I mean, that team is completely different now. Like, Pre's on Boston, and Pre has made a super team on Boston. I don't know if you've seen any Overwatch League news. So
I haven't been following it at all this year.
No, I mean, that's fair. Let me get up the team, because it is... You will not believe... I'm not even kidding. Like, you will not believe the team Pre has cooked up on Boston. Listen to this, right? Okay. Birdring, Striker, Decay, for Tank, Kalios and Smurf. Wait. The backline, Lee Jae-gon, Izzyaki and Twilight. On Boston. Boston Uprising. I know.
How? Why? Why are Boston investing money now?
I'm not sure. APAC is in a little bit of a weird spot because of China at the moment.
Yeah.
But that's their team. And they have, of course, well, Birdring's like come back because he was a content creator for a while. Content creator for Gladiators.
Created a piece for the Guard. We scripted a video for Birdring's retirement. where we
Just
were
chuck it
was
out.
like some fake infomercial that was way too much work for what we got paid for, to be fair. But
I mean, that's done. I mean, Birdring's back in the fucking league. He's on
now he's unretired. Okay.
Smurf from Seoul Dynasty is now on the Boston Uprising. Like and then Washington Justice are just American Tornado, basically.
Right.
Like all the Western players that were like scattered among different teams.
Yeah.
All the American Tornado players that got split up last year are now on. Oh no, sorry, they're on Toronto, not Washington. Sorry.
Yeah.
They're on Toronto Divine, but like that's where. Like all of the, it's all fucky. Actually, the Toronto Divide didn't make sense in that conversation, but fuck it. But yeah, how wicked. And like their team last year, by the way, was Victoria, Seeker, Valentine, Punk, Crimzo, MCD, It's Our Faith, and Mag. Like a lot. It's like a hodgepodge team. A lot of good players in there, but dude. And then they have this like championship caliber roster now. It's really ridiculous.
Strange.
Yeah,
that is strange.
It is weird.
But they were the killers of fun.
They were. I know. That was... Oh, man. We've had a few of those teams of late as well, but the fun killers, that's never a good thing. Is there a team like that in Valorant that's kind of like a fun killer?
Where the potential's there, but they never meet it.
They just never get there, and you're like, come on, bro.
Seriously? Yeah, there's a few that kind of ring a bell like that. Like last year, there was kind of like Liquid, which was all over the place. Liquid is a team with Scream on it. That's what that team's known for as well. You know, the one-tap headshot guy. If anyone's listening, then they follow various esports. They don't follow Valorant, but they would always play wacky comps, and they would do they would do well in tournaments, so they would never go far. Another team that always looked like they had mad potential and never made it far was Fnatic. But this year they have literally a super team. Like they have the super team for the partnership system. And so if they don't win something this year, they are literally the Washington Justice reincarnate because they have so much fucking talent on this team. Like they've replaced so many of the pieces, and it has to come together this year. It has to be. I mean, if Fnatic don't win, it's something that I don't know. I don't think they ever will. Because the talent looks too fucking good. I know that's strange to say as well, because we literally just begun talking about how the slightest little variable can change expectations. So it's weird to say with certainty that a team just should get a title, otherwise it's a failure, because anything can happen.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good teams in esports, but yeah, this is like their best shot at winning something. So
I feel like in
they don't really
esports,
suck fun though. They don't really suck fun the
right?
same way the Washington Justice do. But I think that's more a symptom of the format, where you see almost less games being played. Like at the global events, like these big, they always like these teams always turn up in the regular season, I guess, the quote unquote regular season, and then they just kind of falter in the big playoff games.
It feels like quite a common trend in esports though, like having a lot of talent on a single roster and then it just doesn't do well at all. Because like whether that's like egos behind doors that you just don't know about, or like internal conflicts and stuff, because it's like, well, I'm actually a better player, like you just suck, like what are you doing, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
and then because they all know they're really good and they all know they're at the top of their game and they all know they're on the team together that is also full of players at the top of their game, but then something weird happens and it just doesn't end up working out. That feels like it happens a lot.
I was talking to Jake actually about coaching when he was in Seoul most recently. I was like having some deep conversations with him, and he was talking about how he went into it with coaching as this, it went into it with one idea about what coaching was like, and he came out to it with realizing that it's literally just like managing personalities and making sure they don't clash and making sure that there's no egos and stuff like that. It's literally so much of it, and there's so much stress attached to that as well, because you'll have players that are really good and they have good ideas or something, but then other players like also really good and they have a completely different idea of how they're supposed to play or how they want to play, and like managing that and trying to like find the middle ground is apparently a huge component of it. So yeah, completely understandable why super teams just fucking blow up, because usually that just comes from having no strict hierarchy, right? The best teams with like actual talent, when I think of it, like historically, if we're just talking about the Overwatch League as an example, you usually have a really strong leader, like a strong coach, like a head coach who's like really puts their fist down about it, puts their foot down even, and says my way or the highway. But they actually have a good idea about it. And talent, the players listen to them. I'm thinking like Shock,
Oh yeah, for sure.
like Shock for their reign of dominance when they had like Krusty and everyone else.
Is that something you could ever get into, do you think?
Or
Like
coaching?
Coaching or like something within a team?
Maybe. I'm a very competitive person. And the thing is, I think it would be a bit of a weird trajectory, because I get quite a lot of fulfillment out of my life right now, like where I'm at right now with commentating and everything, just broadcast work.
Yeah.
I feel quite pleased with where I'm at, actually, like more so than anything else, or actually, or any other period in time. Actually, I feel like I'm at my best right now, in terms of all of it. So it would be a weird trajectory to go into, but I've definitely thought about it, like different avenues, I guess, to go down in casting if for whatever reason it just lost its luster, and yeah, coach is an interesting one. It's a very selfless role. You're not the star. You've got to basically work with other people, and yeah, focusing heavily on like the analytical side of like games is something that I've only really just started doing, weirdly enough, because
Okay.
I know that sounds strange, because I was on the analyst desk for 2 years in the Overwatch League.
Yeah.
So that's a weird thing to say. But the Overwatch League analyst desk, I was a play-by-play caster before that. I'd only ever done play-by-play. So I never really did any sort of analytical work before I got hired for that. So I kind of just formed my own niche on that desk, which was being a bit of a clowny individual, a bit of a fooly guy, throwing a bit of whimsy in there, and not just be an idiot on the broadcast, because esports desks, like across the board, are overly serious and they're devoid of personality. And often when they're overly serious, I feel like you can get away with like being, quite serious about what you're saying, as long as what you're saying has substance. But I knew it was coming from a position of like, I'm starting from almost ground zero of my analytical knowledge. So I just needed to really lean into my personality and strengths in that way, back then. And then I slowly built up the tool set a little bit, where I felt like I understood the game to a pretty good level, just because I was hanging around Josh all the time, also on the desk, and he would just be talking about shit. And it's like literally, if you were subjected with your eyes open in a torture room for 9 hours just watching analytical footage, and you were just getting it explained to you. Yeah. So that was kind of what the first 2 years of the Overwatch League were like. But at that point, towards the end of that, it didn't matter if I knew the game or not, because I had kind of shoehorned myself into the class clown role. So it didn't matter anyway. Like, just people wouldn't take me seriously at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
And it's
you need
funny
that though,
as well,
to be fair.
actually. You do need that, but it's funny because I often think about that regarding like casting and the kind of trajectory that my casting went in the Overwatch League, like when I started in 2020 and onwards, and how me and Josh never ended up doing the big grand finals of the 2 years that we did casting. I don't I don't take that personally at all because I don't think me personally I don't think I was like the best play-by-play caster in the Overwatch League at all by any means because you got fucking Mitch Leslie in there, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Well,
hard.
yeah,
It's hard to compete.
obviously,
Mitch
yeah.
is a fantastic caster.
Yeah.
Like very difficult to even compete with that. But I do think it definitely harmed us. And in particular, I feel bad for Josh as well because Josh is fucking excellent at what
Yeah.
he does, and he was amazing in the
Yes.
Overwatch League. And because he out of anyone who would have deserved like a grand finals, if you can think about it like that, like deserved, it probably would have been Josh to deliver something on that lines. But I think me being put in that shoebox of a bit jokey, and it didn't help as well that our banter and back and forth as well made the shit teams more palpable. When we're casting, because that was what we were known for as well. Is that
Yeah.
they
Seriously.
would give us shit games. They would give us like the really bad teams because we would just have fun with it. And then people, I think, get at the back of their minds the kind of perception of you is that you're not a big game caster. You're not a serious caster.
Yeah.
When I think that when we did get those games, we did them justice. We consciously would talk about toning down the jokes more, and we would go heavily into storyline focused stuff and trying to deliver on the big moments. But yeah.
I think, yeah, just to touch on your Josh point, I say this a lot on my stream whenever anybody kind of talks about Josh or like casting or whatever, or like, what caster are you? I'm the play-by-play. I do this, like you have to explain like to your mom how the fucking casting shit works. It's like same with Twitch chat sometimes because they don't really understand. And it's good to explain. Obviously, the more people that know, they can like get a different grasp of like the broadcast and how it works. And I always say like Josh is one of the best storytellers I think in esports. I was going to say Overwatch, but like esports. He's up there definitely. Like the way he breaks down games, how fluid he is going from like storylines also into like super analytical shit. I think he's like exceptional at, and I do agree. Like he definitely has like grand finals material, for sure.
Yeah.
Talking about that kind of subject because this is like I'm being real. Like this is like an internal battle I've been having with myself over the last couple of years too. Because I'm like, could I do it? Could I cast a grand finals? Am I able to do that? Because I don't know if I can. Like, I don't know if I'm ready yet, but I know I've been in the league for like 4 years, so it's a bit difficult. It's a bit weird. Like, how do you kind of put yourself? No, sorry. What's your mindset like when it comes to grand finals? You kind of elaborated on it there a little bit. Do you think it requires that like, just hardcore, boom, serious game bullshit, or do you think it can be a little bit more lighthearted too? Because I think in Overwatch, it's been rather static, obviously with Mitch and Matt doing it, and rightfully so, because Mitch is one of the best play-by-plays, if not the best in esports right now. How do you feel about that? Because like I said, it's a bit of a mental roadblock I've been having, whether I can like get myself up there. Do you think you would, at least in like Valorant, you could do that kind of less clowny, more like boom?
Well, actually, in Valorant, I've properly toned down a lot of the banter.
Yeah.
A lot more because I realized, like I said, that we got kind of, because of the kind of role I put myself in with the first 2 years of the Overwatch League desk, we kind of got shoeboxed, put in that shoebox of, we are the bit of the jokey casters, we can have fun with it, but, not entirely serious. And so Valorant kind of opened up. And as well that you can't really just go into a new game, into a new audience and immediately just start like being a fucking idiot, you know? So you got to warm them up to you as a personality first. So actually in Valorant, there's a bunch of other things as well that led up to this moment of in Valorant, but I took it a lot. I kind of got a lot more serious about it. Not to say I wasn't taking the Overwatch League seriously, by the way. There's a whole, again, like I said, there's a lot of reasoning as to why I wasn't particularly happy with my final year in the Overwatch League, and there's reasoning behind that with just my work and what I put out. But I kind of took Valorant as a fresh start, and then part of that was consciously identifying like, okay, I kind of don't want to be shoehorned into that that jokey kind of persona, especially with me and Josh, because I know we can do otherwise. So I've toned that down a lot more, focused a lot more analytically. But humor is still, you can still inject humor into a cast. It just needs to be in the right place, right time. And when we're consciously doing like big games, like me and Josh have done a couple of grand finals. At least online, we've done one LAN. We did Copenhagen grand finals, which was sweet. And yeah, we kind of like we ramp up all of it, like in terms of the storytelling and the big moments and the gravity of the situation, because it's supposed to be the culmination of the tournaments, the culmination of like a split or whatever you want to call it in the esports circuit for that year. So it's supposed to be a very defining moment, and it needs to be more serious. But any caster worth their salt will recognize that and do that. You know what I mean? It's yeah,
Definitely.
I think it's yeah. No one. I personally didn't feel ready when I was doing the grand finals of Copenhagen at all. In most recently in 2022, because I kind of was still in that mindset of like I've never really done a big game. We did the grand finals for like some of the other tournaments in the Overwatch League throughout, but
Yeah.
this was like my first year in Valorant. Me and Josh got thrusted into like a lot of big matches, which I'm very grateful for. And we worked really fucking hard to get there. But at the back of my mind, there was still that like imposter syndrome of being like, oh wow, I wasn't expecting this at all. I wasn't expecting to get put in this position. But you just kind of have to prepare as best you can and do the best job you can. And I did not have a good cast in our grand finals, but that's fine because you can learn from it, right? And
Yeah.
it's a
For
learning
sure.
moment. And also I thought I didn't do a good job in it, but other people watching, they don't recognize the same shit. They don't spot the same mistakes. So they think it's fine. But I did scream incredible dick during the grand finals when there was a complete silence moment with English being blasted through this arena. So
I mean,
that was
honestly,
good.
that's a pop off moment. That's a pog
Yep,
moment right there.
that
That's
was
a
good.
clip. Let's talk
Mhm.
about your last year of the Overwatch League then, because you said you weren't really happy with the casting. That was in
No.
2021.
Yeah.
So what was going through your head then? What was happening?
I think it was a build up from 2020 and 2021, where 2020 kicks off, and it's mine and Josh. This is our time to actually cast as well as a duo, which we were fighting for quite some time to cast, but we already had so many casting duos up to that point in the Overwatch League that it wasn't until a bunch of them ended up not getting hired or leaving that we ended up getting the chance to cast. And it was also supposed to be the year when we went to homestands, right? You remember,
Yep.
supposed to be the big impetus moment of the Overwatch League, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And so there was a bunch of circumstances with that where, just absolutely sinking depression from having a lack of social life. That fucking house that we were living in was just hell
We'll
on
get
earth.
onto that in a minute. Oh
Yeah,
my
I'm not gonna lie,
god.
that house was horrible. But that combined with the fact that it felt like the job wasn't going anywhere, and it felt like okay, we just got to get over this hurdle. 2020 went from like fuck, we're gonna pop off. This is gonna be our year where we really work really hard as casters and try and elevate the product. And I was really motivated at the beginning, like incredibly motivated, into the COVID era of like we're casting in a fucking you know a drywall box for an entire year,
Yeah.
sometimes completely alternating our sleep schedules. And at that point, it was just at the back of my mind, my casting was just survival mode. Do the best job I can because it's my first year. I want to fucking kill it, but just try and get through this year because on the other side, it will be better. And so I kind of built up, like, got through 2020 in a horrible mental state. And I was like, 2021, new year, let's fucking kill this shit. Hopefully, this will be a turning point now for the Overwatch League and everything else. And what I realized was, I came into it 2021, same kind of motivation, quite high. Moved to Austin, really wanted to come into it and kill it, and I was feeling pretty good about it. But then you realize the budget gets scaled back. The budget gets scaled back, the resources get scaled back, and it felt like I'm putting forwards ideas, I'm putting forwards improvements to the broadcast, little things, and it's getting met with obstacles and red tape all the time internally. And it feels like the people who were working on the Overwatch League, the people who are running the show, this might not be the case across the board, but it just felt like they didn't want the product, or they were just running it with like a bit of a skeleton crew. It felt like they didn't want a part of it. And that kind of like sentiment felt like it stretched from the dev team also as well, like where the development side of Overwatch was at times it was so separate from the esports side, from the Overwatch League side. And I think you can look, behind all the articles that have come out since then and realizing that, Bobby Kotick was pushing for the Overwatch League as a concept. The dev team, had to, scramble. They have to dedicate resources towards it. So obviously there's going to be like animosity on that side of things because they're being forced into this. And so it got to that point in 2020, and I realized, like, as we were a bit into 2021, that it felt like I was working on a product that nobody wanted to succeed. And I was like, I'm sat here and I'm like, I'm investing this energy and I'm not getting anything out of it. And so what ended up happening was I was like, I don't know. I just went into, again, it wasn't quite survival mode from COVID of just like trying to get through it, but it was
Right.
like,
Right.
I'm gonna put forwards as much energy as I can manage to keep my own mental in check. And that's kind of, that was what my attitude. That's the kind of default that I landed on with 2021. And I was going through therapy at the same time, which is very, very helpful. Went on the other side of that as well. Ended up getting diagnosed with ADHD because I realized there was something wrong with my inability to focus at that point. And went to see a psychiatrist, and then got diagnosed. You have ADHD, and it's funny because the turning point of 2021, like the midway point, was, that was a big moment for my own personal life where I realized, I got diagnosed with ADHD, I got help with that, realized that I wasn't stupid, I wasn't just lazy. There was something behind my inability to sit still for long periods of time and sit down and watch a
Yeah.
VOD and prep. There was actually some logical reason behind it. And so that was a big realization moment, but it felt like, okay, I'd now had all the tools to succeed, but it feels like I was working in a system that didn't want that didn't even want the system. They didn't want the product to succeed. Um, and I mean, I can give specific examples, like me and Josh asking to cast next to each other. We lived next door in 2021, and they wouldn't let us cast together, like in the same room. That is, like they
Yeah.
wouldn't let us, cast
I
side
do
by
remember
side
that
when we lived next door.
conversation. It was a bit like,
And
wait,
this
but
happened for months until they
yeah,
finally let us do it for the playoffs. But we could have done it for like way,
the
way,
whole year
way earlier,
almost.
the whole year.
Yeah.
And it just felt like that I was working on something that the Blizzard didn't want the Overwatch League to succeed, is how I felt for me. That might not be the case now because, again, I'm not involved in it anymore. But I can definitely understand where, like, the narrative where people would watch my work, my product, and I'm not proud of 2021 at all because I was literally just going through it with a sense of apathy. And it's not like I lost passion for Overwatch or casting because I still like Overwatch as a game. I don't play it that much because all my time is consumed with Valorant right now. But the game I fucking love. I dedicated many hours to it, and I love casting still. That's evident. I love being on
Yeah.
broadcast. I love telling stories, but I can understand where people would attach that label of like losing passion and things. And with the last year, it's not something I'm proud of at all by any stretch of the imagination at all. But it was a definite learning moment, and I'm better. I'm in a much better spot now. Like way, way, way better now.
Yeah.
Um,
No, it does seem
so
it in
yeah.
general, like attitude and like how you are healthy. Obviously, I'm not your fucking dietitian, bro, but like, or your fucking doctor or physio, but you seem healthier, like as a whole. Because I think I do agree with you. 2021 was like, that was a dark year, man. That was a fucked up year, and I don't think people didn't care. I think people did care, but I think the disconnects between Team 4, the Overwatch League, with COVID and everything, that is, oh my God, that just separated everybody. Everybody was on their own little fucking island, basically, right? And it felt weird. It did feel really strange. It was like the broadcast boys, the fucking team, the homies in one section. Then you have like the Overwatch League, and then you have Team 4, because that's also when Overwatch wasn't really being developed on at all. Overwatch 1, that is. Overwatch 2 at that
it
point
was in a lull.
Yeah, Overwatch 2 was in development. Like, they definitely had like, Sojourn and that lot online, like available to play for the internal play tests and like, certain alpha, maybe like pre-alpha play tests and stuff. So like Overwatch 1 wasn't really being touched. Like every now and then they released a patch, but it wasn't anything of substance. Echo was like the last hero. And dude, Echo feels like when Ana came out, you know what I mean? Like, she's
so
been in the
long
game
ago.
since the launch, you know what I mean? So it was a very weird year. And like casting, obviously it stemmed down to that as well. Like, god damn, bro. I think I lived next to Matt that year. I think I saw him twice. One of which I looked after his dog. I love Hugo though. Hugo's the fucking man. I think I like Hugo more than Matt, honestly. That is a joke.
I mean,
I
own a company with Matt, and I never fucking talk to him.
I know, it's wild, bro. Dude keeps to himself, and yeah, he needs you. When he needs you, he'll call you. Let's touch on a small bit in there, Bren. When you talk about this a lot on your stream, and you know there will be a lot of cross-pollination on this video and stuff. But let's talk about like ADHD and stuff, because you just mentioned like that was a big kind of turning point for you, where you sat down, you were like, "There's an issue. I cannot sit down for long. I cannot concentrate, and if I do, I hyperfixate on things, and then other shit doesn't get done and stuff like that." So, how did that? And when you got onto the medication, and like, how has that really like affected you? Do you think it was a good thing for your casting, or do you think ADHD had some kind of like small effect on your casting too, where it made it better? Because I've heard a lot of stories in general, like across the board, like ADHD. I harness my ADHD power energy, and like I can do this.
Yeah.
Like, how has it affected you as a person?
It was horrible from a preparation standpoint before I was medicated, because my prep would almost sometimes it would just be non-existent, but it would just be like I could watch live VODs. I think just the uncertainty aspect would hook me in a lot more with live VODs. But if I'm watching a VOD that's already been played, it's like I would really struggle to sit down with it and you know pay attention to it and think about it. And yeah, I kind of noticed warning signs. Basically, it all built up like a combination of things where I realized like, okay, like I wasn't happy with my product that I was putting out in 2021 at all. And I was like, okay, let's try and get to the core of this here. Like part of it was like me going into therapy. I took a big mental health break in 2021 as well, because I was feeling this constant feeling of imposter syndrome constantly, where I felt like I didn't know enough to be on the podcast that we were on, like doing Plat Chat Valorant, Plat Chat Overwatch as well. Didn't feel good enough to be on in the public eye doing any broadcast work at all, regardless of what it was. And I remember I would lay awake at night and I would get like 2 hours sleep because I was so like anxious about recording the next morning on the podcast, because like the imposter syndrome. And the imposter syndrome was derived from, I think, just an inability to prep properly and prepare properly and learn properly in that kind of like VOD format where I'm sat down. And so I kind of like had a realization as I'm going through therapy for like that kind of that's you know the anxiety, the depression that was happening from 2020 to 2021. And I had a realization that like, oh yeah, I can't sit still in meetings. I can't sit still for long periods of time. I can't concentrate. And sometimes when I do concentrate, it's on the wrong thing. I'm like streaming for 12 hours playing Dark Souls 3 speed running in glitchless any percent. And it's like I'm concentrating. I'm like hyperfixating on the wrong things, like you described, right? And then I had like this just an awareness moment, because it's not something that people really talk about in the UK. But there were warning signs also when I was a kid. They thought I was deaf when I was a kid. They told my mum to check my hearing because of my listening, because I couldn't pay attention when I was a kid.
Oh, interesting.
They just assumed that I was deaf. And so they took me to the doctors, and they were like, no, his hearing's fine. Off you go. And just didn't check anything else. And then, and so there was many warning signs that all built up to this moment of me being like, hang on a second, something's not right. It took me a long time to find like a psychiatrist, someone who can help me with that. And then eventually got diagnosed. And then it was just trial and error with medication for like the second half of 2021. And then until I was feeling like I was in a good enough spot that I could return to doing work and things, because the medication was helping. And then it's only got to like the tail end of 2022, you know, I'd be still trial and error basically, but I found myself like a dosage and things that actually works well for me. And it's changed my world, honestly. It has been so fucking enlightening. Because like I said before, I just thought I was lazy, stupid, anything else. And I kind of just like leaned into that. And part of what carried me in esports up until that point was that I was able to hyperfixate on it because I enjoyed it so much. I enjoyed gaming and I enjoyed the esports side of things. So I could concentrate on that at the sacrifice of everything else in my life. But the aspects that would improve the broadcast, the things that, you know, are needed, which is like the hard work outside of being on camera, outside of, you know, casting, whatever else, that was the stuff that I was struggling at that would actually improve my craft. So it kind of like shattered that stagnation that I was feeling there with my own work. It shattered it because I was prepping effectively now. I've now learned how to actually properly sit down and do that work. And it's helped so much with the imposter syndrome, because I'm now coming in with, a bunch of notes. I know I've done the work. I know what I've looked at, and I have all the details listed out. I have all the things that I think are important. So the imposter syndrome is no more because I'm actually able to prepare for things now. And so it's like it's just completely solved. It was just that one thing that just almost like domino effect just collapsed onto everything else. And it just so happens that it all got solved like when I was just in basically energy saving mode with the Overwatch League, and wasn't quite proud of that. But yeah, luckily when I got picked up for Valorant casting in 2022, which was off the back of the big outcry from the community, right? When we didn't get basically we got an initial offer that wasn't very good, and
Right.
we were like, we don't want to negotiate now, like 3-4 months before the Overwatch League with this offer. We don't think it's fair to give us a deadline on this, blah blah blah. And then we just didn't get reached out to again. Um, I took that basically. Valorant reached out to us, which was quite good, and I was like, I don't want to squander this opportunity. I don't want to come into this like with the Overwatch League where I kind of come into it with half measures, or come into it, like not preparing properly. And also, I took it as like a learning moment from the Overwatch League where I felt like um, not necessarily like the thing that was holding me back from ever casting a proper grand finals was the fact that I was a bit of a class clown with a personality, but I definitely didn't want to start like that in the new game. I took it as an opportunity to almost reinvent myself and be the broadcast talent that I know I could be. And so I went into it. Me and Josh worked really fucking hard, and we got hired for the first global event of 2022. And they liked us so much they extended us to stay out there. We were only supposed to work the first half of the event in Iceland. They extended us to stay out there. Next thing I know, the next global event, we're doing the fucking finals for it. So like it's been working out. It's been working out big time. And but it's been a lot of like hard focus, a lot of hard work that's been put into that. But that was hard work that I was literally incapable of doing properly before I got diagnosed and before I got help with ADHD.
That's yeah. Well, one kind of big, well, not even big, like a small turning point that just cascaded into like opportunities and you doing various things just from discovering, like you said, I'll use your words. I'm not dumb as fuck. Wait, I have a problem. I have ADHD.
Yeah.
Like I'm not stupid. Like I just can't concentrate. I think that's kind of crazy how that happens, and I feel like that kind of issue is probably more common than people think, I would imagine, with like finding out you have ADHD or like some other kind of like learning thing or whatever. Because I think I've told you this story before. They were like almost certain I was dyslexic. Like almost certain. I took a test and they were like, well, you passed it, but like you're 1 mark, but just above the threshold where you can kind of say you're dyslexic. My spelling is terrible, like shit like that. And maybe if that ended up working out, it would have changed me in some way, but obviously it didn't, and I'm here now. But yeah, I like that kind of idea that it just kind of like turned a switch and like, whoa, now a whole new doors have kind of opened up to me. And let's talk about kind of your hard work, because dude, I'm not gonna lie, how you put in fucking hours of streaming is beyond me. Bro, I have never met someone in my fucking life that can sit there in silence, leave your PC for 2 hours and game viewers. It doesn't make sense. Like theoretically, it doesn't make sense, right? On Twitch, you have to be fucking on it. You have to be like, Stream Deck, funny buttons, like clown noises and like German sus face, like. Yeah. And then you leave the stream and you game views. Like that's always the kind of the funniest thing. You got to
break out of the box of it, because a lot of people think streaming is all just the one type of like constantly being overstimulation, just like people think that that's what streaming has to be. It doesn't have to be that. My stream is just, I focused on it being incredibly just chill. And I just put in as much energy as I want to at a given point in time. And I really like streaming. It's like my hobby. So I can easily sit there and do it. Even before I was like getting medicated and shit, because there's all sorts of horror stories of streamers like taking Adderall so that they can stream fucking 16-hour days and shit.
Yes.
Which is just horrific, by the way. Just like a horrific abuse of medication to even do it in the first place. But listen, I'm fucking built different. I don't need medication to do that. I do that. I fucking do that anyway. I'm doing that anyway. Not healthy, by the way. Not healthy to fixate on that, which I've actually been cutting back on recently this year.
What,
been streaming a lot less.
Are you sure? It doesn't feel like it.
I've been streaming a lot less. I've been doing like 8-hour, 9-hour streams instead of like 12, 14, 16.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if I go onto Twitch, like at least last year went onto Twitch, there was no point in time where you weren't between 8 or 16 hours. You were hitting the double digit hours, like more often than not.
It was like almost every day.
And I'm like, dude, how is that possible? Like, how because are you fucking sitting there just, dude, I can't.
Some streamers are just like switched on all the time, have to be entertaining, but I don't know. I've cultivated a very nice community and they're very used to my antics of just like,
for sure.
Where is Bren? Probably on the bathroom or on TikTok. Like just fucking away for 30 minutes. Just.
That's it. I mean, I guess it's the surprise, right? Someone comes into stream. Oh, the chair. It's chair stream time. And then you're like, when does Bren come back? The fucking chair stream,
it's the chair stream.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, I can't wait till it comes back. And I think that's quite cool. That's an interesting way of looking at it. It's actually not a way I've thought about before. It's like, yeah, you don't really have to be switched on all the time, realistically, right?
No.
You just have to.
People do think that because that's where the most successful streamers are like that, where they're just
that's true.
They're always popping off, but you don't. You shouldn't let other people define your success.
And defining success in a stream is very different, I think, from every other job too, because I would say you're as the numbers go, you could say you look at the numbers and you're like, oh wow, 300 viewer, you get like 300 viewers ish, right? Or like it depends what time of day you're streaming or what games and stuff. But we'll say like 300 is an average.
That's like high, I would say.
Sure.
Probably like 150, 200.
Okay, we'll call it 200 then. And we'll say, okay, Bren's got 200 viewers. How successful is that? And then you look at the top page of Twitch, XQC streaming to, just a classic 80,000 people. Yeah. And it's just, you're like, so numbers wise, you wouldn't say your stream is successful. However, because Twitch is like such a ridiculous platform, like 200 viewers is top 0.001% of streamers, which is like very successful. Anything over 100 viewers is quite a successful stream. And I think, like you said, just cultivating an audience that is used to your antics, is used to you playing for 10 hours of just chilling, farming, doing whatever the fuck, is extremely helpful. Which I know the answer to this question. I just fucking know it. But like, would you ever say to someone if they came to you, get into streaming, I think it's a good idea? How would you say, how would you answer that question if someone came up to you like that? Because I bet you get it a lot. Like,
if they asked, how do I get into streaming? Or like, should they get into it?
I worded that terribly, but how do you get into streaming?
I don't know. I mean, I do it as a hobby because I have like, there's a lot of overlapping interests, right? With my job, that's my primary job and primary, I get a lot of fulfillment out of casting. And so sometimes I'll go live in the morning and it'll be a VOD review for like 2 to 3 hours of like a team. And so, but then also I want to chill out a little bit. And so I'm just streaming, but also you can think about that as like building your brand at the same time and your value outside of that, because, it's all connected. Some fucking, I don't know, you get side income from it, I guess. But for me, I purely do it just because I have fun with it. But I would say, no, don't do it. Because it's like, it takes a lot of time. You need to be blessed with either a job where, there's some overlap there where you can like stream your job and people are interested in it. Or you have some sort of pull outside of just playing games. Because for me, the pull is like, and for anyone who's like a commentator, the pull is that you are a central figure in an esports circuit, in an esports scene. And so people come to you to talk about the news, they talk about this, that, the other, because you're a personality. You're a person of influence in that sphere. And so that's your draw. That's why people will watch your stream. And then they might like your personality as well, blah, blah, blah. But that's the primary thing. You need to have like that first draw as to why people will watch you in the first place. And so most people, when they just want to stream, they just want to play games, right, for a long period of time because they play games as their hobby. But you need that draw outside of it, which often leads to people hating streaming because the amount of stories I've heard from people being like, I hate streaming, and they have like a really successful stream. They'll look like I don't know, fucking 500 viewers, 1,000 viewers, whatever. But they have a really successful stream, and they're like, I hate streaming because they feel like they have to perform when they're online. When they're streaming, they feel like they can't ever really like chill, or they feel like the thing that people watch them for is like this particular gimmick or this particular niche, and so unless they can keep doing that, they might not feel like doing that day, but they have to do it, right, for it to continue to be successful. And so
it can come down to games too, right? Well, like if you play X game, you get 1,000 viewers. You play Y game, you get 100. Like it's crazy. drop off, I think, and that's where I think you've done exceptionally well. Is people just watch you do anything, and that's like the best of all worlds with streaming. Because you watch some like Overwatch League players or whoever, if they're not streaming Overwatch, they're not getting as many viewers at all because people just want to watch them play Overwatch. Like at the end of the day, I think it's a little wild and wacky. And that's actually something that I'll wrap it around and like we'll talk about the fucking house that we stayed in because good God, that was a fucking joke. But that was where I was like, holy shit, you stream a lot. Like God fucking damn. Like I'm always weirdly interested in people's routines when it comes to like, what time do you get up? Like, what do you do? Like streaming wise or like work or like how do you kind of lay out your day? And obviously living in the fucking big house, I literally can see everybody's days and how they go about it, you know? And that was always, I don't know why I'm like interested in that kind of stuff, but I just kind of am. But that house, man, was that the first time I met you too? Did I meet you somewhere before the house?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Oh, I think that must be the first time. I can't really remember.
I can't really remember either.
But dude, that house was a fucking mess. Anybody didn't know?
It was a nightmare.
2020, me, Bren, Josh for like the smallest amount of time had an office. Jake, Scott, Kurt, and Wyatt, and then also the rotating room of random homies that were rotating in and out of the fucking giant house that we lived in California, in LA. Very nice house, by the way. Like architecturally, the look of it is fucking sick. It needed a lot of work. The person that was renting it out, her husband was like sick, but he was building up this fucking house. Nice house overall.
Landlord.
Oh, good God. That house, the plague house, the Pepega house.
Yeah, no, it wasn't good. I mean, it was supposed to be a content house. Then COVID hit. There was never supposed to be like more than 4 people in the house at a given time because we were supposed to be traveling all year. That didn't fucking happen because the Overwatch League, the traveling circuit got cancelled. COVID hit. So suddenly there's like 7 people in the house at every given point in time. COVID hits at the exact same time and the internet infrastructure across fucking the USA, across the world can't keep up because everyone's online now streaming because of work and whatever else. So we couldn't stream properly. Do you remember we had to create a rotating schedule? The stream schedule of when we were allowed to stream. It was insanity. So and I am so proud of myself, by the way, the fucking network wizardry that I pulled off to be able to, with the traffic, the splitter. I like bought a really good router switcher, whatever the fuck it's called. And like, holy shit, I was like working on that shit for ages. And I min-maxed the shit out of whatever internet we got so that we could stream. I min-maxed the shit out of it. Like it was crazy. But that house was horrible.
Everywhere in that
there was
house.
Cables everywhere.
Like it was ridiculous. And for people obviously that motherfuckers didn't go in that house. So like the upstairs where is it everybody that lived? Yeah, everybody was upstairs.
Yeah, everyone was upstairs. Sure.
Yeah, and then when you go up the stairs, you turn left and then you make a small right and there's a long corridor. There's a couple of bedrooms at the end. There was a few bedrooms dotted around. And in the center of that small corridor was this little shoe rack with the router and the switch. The network switch was fucking massive. And then a billion cables come out of that fucking switch. And it goes to everybody's fucking room. Oh, there were 2 switches. You're right.
There was 2 switches, yeah.
2 switches. Cables fucking everywhere. We're like duct taping that shit to the fucking ceiling. Yep. Because we need Ethernets in every single person's room. Yeah. Oh my God. Actual fire hazard, like construction hazard, tripping over cables every fucking day.
Yep.
Oh, dude. And like you said, you did perform wizardry on that shit.
Yeah, we got through it though, because previous to that, it was like, I think we could get like 2 streams going at once.
Yeah, and
then I got it to the point where we had like 4, maybe 5, I think, at the same time, because it was basically just, I think it was just network management where like the packets need to be routed properly, so that because before like whatever software they give you, whatever hardware they give you with just the default shit, just wank. Whenever you go through, so like just finding a better piece of hardware for it. But that was hell. And then the ants as well. When you're living with 7 people, it doesn't matter, like it's just a perpetual race to try and clean up as well. And some people weren't cleaning up after themselves particularly effectively, and I don't blame them as well. There's a sense of depression hanging over the house because it's fucking COVID. We can't go outside. We were treating COVID very seriously. A lot of people weren't really. They were still like having social lives and going out and shit around that period of time. I don't know if you remember, like there was just like, there would be parties going on down the street every now and then.
I thought you meant the house. I'm like, I'm pretty sure we didn't have any parties, but down the street.
No, down the street and stuff. But the house we were taking it very seriously in the house. Like we were only going for like walks and grocery runs, and that was it. Like, we weren't going outside.
That was
like,
the best.
Ever.
That was sometimes, by the way, the highlight of our fucking days. Hey, do you want to go for a walk
do
around
you
the
go for a
fucking
walk?
block so we can get
And then that was the
outside?
highlight of it. But when you have that many people, and all it takes is like one person who doesn't clean up after themselves, and then the fucking ants. That was a nightmare. Living in a house that was just infested with ants the entire year during COVID, feeling like you were getting no fulfillment from your job because you're casting another drywall box, and alternating time schedules, time zones. You're literally flipping your time zone every 2 weeks because you were casting APAC and NNA. Oh, bruh. Yeah, that was not good. That was not good.
The ant situation as well, that I want to just put a visual in people's heads. You know how like ants create lines of their little workers that go from place to place, sniffing out the nearest meal for the rest of the fucking colony. These roadways literally were built like the Roman Empire. Like fucking 4x4, like fucking 4 ants in a row, just like scat. And then this is giant fucking bin, because Kurt was like, we should probably get a giant bin because there's a fuck ton of us. And we were like, okay, sounds good. And then we got the bin, and the ants found their way into the fucking bin, and there was trails of ants fucking everywhere. And then we got the powder, and then we got the fucking traps.
I spent so much money on like anti-ant stuff because at the beginning of COVID we couldn't get a pest control guy because it was COVID. So we had to just make do with the shit you buy online. And I went ham. I must have spent like $500 on ant pest control shit. And it felt like it helped for a little bit, but it's just, if you don't clean up, if you don't solve the root of the problem, which is just easy access to food, you're fucked. And then once they like got into the house, there was like the drought that was going on, obviously. Like there's no fucking water. So they were getting water from the AC unit.
Yes.
And from our bathrooms. So they, as soon as they found the water supply, we just couldn't remove them. Because what are you going to do? Rip out the fucking water supply? Not use AC? Like, we couldn't get rid of them from that point on because they had just found a consistent supply of water. That was horrific. I have it literally triggers me when I see a little black speck like on the floor. And see like a little, like anything like insect like, and it's like triggered that in me that like, if I spot this, any sort of movement, my eyes now can spot like the tiniest of insect movements. And like, if I see that, I'm like, we're nuking the house. Come. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm just fucking, I go on a massive cleaning spree as soon as I see the first sign of an insect, which actually happened when I was living with Kurt and Wyatt in a house in Austin. The first time we moved there, I think Kurt was like eating in his little office room that was at the front of the house and dropping crumbs and stuff. And I remember we're recording a podcast episode. We're like two months in, and I just look down and I see the ants, and I'm like,
not again.
During the podcast episode, ordered a fucking Dyson vacuum, ordered the pest control shit, ordered the outside ant pest control shit, all cleaning supplies, boom, dropped the order and just went to fucking town on the house. Like, I set up the ant trap perimeter outside the house in the garden, like in a semicircle around our home. I went nuts on that shit because there's no fucking way I am living through that shit ever again. It is horrific.
It's not good. And it's like, like you said, never ending problem. Like, you bought the shit, everybody was doing the little goo traps, didn't matter. They get filled up with fucking ants. They were in the AC because they needed water. Oh, by the way, we didn't have hot water for like a month and a half, and we actually used showers at hotel rooms when we were traveling to different events. That was fucking sick. That house was it was fun as fuck. It created a lot of good memories, but it was like a disaster. Like an absolute fucking disaster. Also, getting people together to do content, literally impossible. Do not recommend it at all unless you're fucking offline TV. Like,
the thing is, I think if the circumstances were different, we would have actually been creating stuff. But there was just so much stress at the time. There was so much stress at the time. There was so much going on that was just like the uncertainty of COVID. We can't go outside that much.
The uncertainty of the league too.
The uncertainty of the league, everything. There was so much stress that was compiling that COVID, like, content wasn't even on our minds at that point. Like, we would maybe like coordinate like a couch stream or something every now and then just for fun. But it wasn't really the idea that we set out to with the content house, where we were actually going to be planning stuff during the interim when we wouldn't be traveling for the Overwatch League. We were like, okay, who's in the house? Do you want to do something this week? Blah, blah, blah. Like, do you want to do some cool stuff? That was like the idea behind it. We didn't have venture capitalist investment.
Yeah, also that, If we had a VC investing in tier 7, we'd be fucking popping off right now. We wouldn't need any other esport.
We'd be bankrupt probably, but we would have popped off in the moment.
It would have been fun. That's the thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was like I said, good memories, bad time overall, and then obviously you moved to To Austin, Texas.
Yeah, Austin, Texas.
You prefer it there than California?
Yeah, I mean it's cheaper.
Yeah.
It's cheaper and the same quality of life. I always felt like with Cali, I enjoyed living in Cali, but I was paying so much in taxes, and it felt like I wasn't
roll you.
able to get anything out of it as like just a foreign resident of California, because like a lot of that is funding roads and public services and things, which I was never taking advantage of that. So I felt like if I'm going to live in a place, I want to live in a place that's going to give me the same quality of life, but I also don't pay as much, which happens to be Austin, Texas. The only bad thing about it is it's in Texas. But Austin is its own little bubble anyway. So
yeah,
Austin's nice to live in. But anywhere outside of that, you walk into other issues. Just like it being in Texas, yeah.
So. And like the weather, that's the thing that Connor complains about a lot. Is like, hey, it's either we're getting a lot of snow and nothing works, or it's unbelievably hot and we're all melting inside of our small cardboard shacks. Like, that's
the weather's not that bad. You get used to the humidity. I know that sounds weird when it's like fucking 35 Celsius, 40 Celsius and humid as fuck, and you're just like, you go outside and it's just a swamp. You do get used to it if you live in a place long enough, so it's not that bad. I mean, don't get me wrong, Cali weather is like amazing.
It is,
just because you just get constantly lovely low humidity, nice sea breeze if you're living by the coast as well, and it's lovely weather most of the time. But the weather's not awful in Austin, and you get quite cool lightning storms, thunderstorms as well, which you get to see as well. Yeah, sometimes you see our lights flickering when we're streaming and there's a lightning storm. Yeah.
Could have a power outage any moment, no one knows. I think that's one of the reasons why I would move like to Vegas actually, or to Texas is income tax. But that's really about it.
State income tax. You don't really pay anything.
Yeah, which is obviously a big benefit to literally anybody. Because not paying any taxes is great. To California taxes.
Yeah, although I will say, I mean, that obviously comes with the fact that you are literally living in a place like this. There was a recent ice storm that wasn't as bad as the winter storm 2 years ago in Austin when we first moved here. That was my first experience of like, holy fuck, America's a third world country, because it was like the Texas was just like, you're on your own. We shall not provide support. And so like I'm like looking at the news recently for the ice storm. Thankfully, I was fine. I've had power the entire time, which means I have heat, and also my pipes didn't burst, which was lovely from the freezing. But there's plenty of people that are less fortunate, and I'm like looking at this thing. I'm like, oh, what resources are available to people that are really badly affected? There's people still right now, by the way, with no power. It's been like multiple days in Texas. Yeah, because there was like an ice storm, and then the branches broke off and fell on power lines and shit, and took out power in places. And because it's colder, the energy spikes, and the Texas power grid is separate from the federal power grid, so it gets overloaded way easier.
Wow.
For some reason, Texas decided to completely separate the power grid. Yeah, I think their justification behind it is like they're not at the whims of the federal government. So
I see.
Go Texas. Like I think that's some part of it, but I'm pretty ignorant as to why there might be more reasons to do it. But it only seems like bad things because it gets overloaded really easily whenever there's spikes in power, like with winter storms. People are blasting AC for heat so they don't die. And they're like, oh, we got to cut off power. We don't have enough power.
It's like, I'm going to freeze to death.
Yeah. I mean, it's horrific. And so I noticed that like 2 years ago was way worse because it was like a lot of snow, a lot of freezing temperatures for like a week straight. And me being an oblivious gamer was not reading the news. It just hit me out of nowhere. And so last time I was in a big, thing like this, was the thing that I've got that's most relatable to it for me at that point in time was Gloucester flooded when I was living in Gloucester as a kid. And within like a few days, the army was there handing out water. Shit, like the government just like mobilized immediately to help people. So we didn't have water.
The UK government's pretty good about that kind of stuff. Floods and like big rivers fucking bursting and shit like that, bursting their banks. They're actually really quick to mobilize. Although the UK is very tiny.
It's tiny, small, right?
Compared to the US.
But I was wondering with the winter storm, I was like, okay, so when does the state step in here? When do they start giving us? Because I don't have water and I don't have food. And guess what? All the supermarkets are sold out of food. And so I was like, what do I do? And they were like, there was no help. I had to filter and boil snow water.
Oh, I
for
remember you
water
doing
to
that.
cook with and
We were
drink.
talking about
Yep.
that, yeah.
Yep. So
That's
that was what I
fucking
was doing.
terrible.
Yeah, and just insanity, really. And then I was worried the same thing was going to happen with the ice storm. I actually had food this
Yeah.
time,
Okay,
but
that's good.
yeah, if there was a water problem, that would have sucked. But no,
I would be
I
more
was
than okay with toothpaste. I have a 2 years supply of toothpaste because I bulk buy everything. It's like you're a sparrow.
I also bulk buy.
Jaws has
Yeah,
12 tubes of toothpaste or like however many tubes I've got.
I'm
Yeah,
the
it's
same. I've got
ridiculous.
loads of toothpaste, loads of hand wash,
Yes.
loads of
Serious.
yeah. I just bulk buy a bunch of stuff.
I love that. I don't know why.
Mm.
It's something I kind of attribute it to like primitive brain, where I'm like,
Yeah, you just want to hoard.
if I get fucking 15 tubes of toothpaste, when do I need to buy toothpaste again? How many cents per fucking toothpaste tube? And is this cheaper than buying it like at the supermarket every now and then? Yes, it is. It turns out, as well as like stick deodorant and like spray deodorant and shit like that. Dude,
and it just saves you time.
Yeah, it saves you time.
You don't need to think about it. You just have it there, and then when you see it running out, you're just like, oh, I'll buy a new bulk.
Yeah, exactly. You buy.
Yep.
I bought shower gel to last like a fucking year, and then I have like a pump bottle, and I just fill that up every now.
Just
and
fill
then.
it up.
Like,
yeah.
Dude, it fucking works and it's cheap. Like I say, I might save. I had this conversation I think on stream the other day where I was like, dude, I min-max my fucking bank account. Like I min-max my life. Like I'm like, okay, if I bulk buy things and I'm looking at, I go to the supermarket, I look at pasta, I'm like, okay, how many cents per pound of pasta? Okay, so this one's actually cheaper per pound. I'll just buy that one.
Yeah.
It is, but it's also like, I'm like, it's probably my mum that I get it from because she was always like, this is funny. Your parents are probably the same, if I would imagine.
Yeah.
Your mum and dad, like, oh, or like parents in general in the UK, save your money. And then your grandparents are like, spend your money. You're not going to live long. You know what I mean? Like that was.
Well, my grandmother was the opposite, actually. Like heavily saved. Yeah, because she was always like a single parent, so she was always saving her money. And so she ended up working a bunch of jobs and managed to buy a house in the UK before the fucking housing, obviously, the situation. My grandmother, obviously, back then times are different. It was she could actually work 2 jobs and pay for a house, whereas these days people are working 2 jobs to survive. So
can barely afford rent.
yeah,
it's pretty sick.
Yeah. So she's always been quite very frugal. So that's kind of like instilled into it, you know. I think that's just smart, especially these days. You know, we're heading into a lot of economic uncertainty. So
yeah, if I buy a lot of stuff now, like the likelihood of it going up is higher than the likelihood of it going down, technically. So you know, if I just stock up on X, Y, or Z thing, then I
wasn't even thinking about that. I was just thinking about being frugal in general. You're thinking about like inflation affecting your future bulk purchases.
Dude, I am though, seriously. We talked about this, like we briefly spoke about this before I hit record because I was like, this is too big. But recently I've been getting into like over the last year, 2 years almost now, I've been like not heavily into finance, but like I really like looking at financial news and like what people are thinking about the markets and like general stocks. I've a pretty decently, well, not decently sized, I don't know what you call a decently sized portfolio, but it's like okay, of like very safe, like ETFs that are just like the market tracked ETFs.
I have no
SPY,
idea
VTI,
what you're talking about.
etc. Yeah, I mean,
I don't follow it. It's a bad trait of mine, but I feel like I don't follow it really. I don't follow finances that much, but it is like economic, you know, vernacular talk is it's like just the way things are equated in just modern language when you're having conversations with people. Like when you're discussing like the value of things, people discuss it in values of like the economic output of things, or you know how much money it makes or how much money it saves, and people think about this in terms of across the board. Like I think it's a bit of a bad thing for some aspects of society. Like there's some things that are just naturally beneficial to society but are going to cost money, things like public libraries, hospitals, things like that. And so when you try to equate monetary value to them, you lose the sight of why you're doing it in the first place. You know, that model doesn't necessarily save everything. But yeah, a lot of people really do get very, very focused on it. I just find it funny because when I watched your deep dive episode with Mitch, because it was just a good episode. And then when you start talking about economics, you're talking about the bull market and we got the investments and the upcoming, they're heading into the next 2 years of the recession. I'm just like, dude, what the fuck is going on? Like, what are you talking about? But no, that's a bad trait of mine, is that I'm just like not necessarily head in the sand with it, but I'm very ignorant in it, and I don't really seek to enlighten myself. So
if it doesn't interest you, it doesn't interest you though, to be fair. Like the reason why I'm interested in it and like investing in stuff. Also, I'll tell you a funny thing that someone told me in Twitch chat the other day. Might have been your stream actually, or like maybe it was my stream. I can't remember, but like I invest in very like safe shit, like SPY, VTI, etc., which is just like they're just ETFs, which is a conglomerate of stocks that track the top 5 S&P 500, the top 500 companies, and it's like it just like tracks the whole economy basically, and it's going up and up and up. It's like it's not something bad you can really invest in. Like surely it's bad when it obviously dips like a shit ton, which by the way is very good. Like when it dipped recently, I'm like fuck yeah, like fucking put some money in that shit. Yeah, like why wouldn't I? Like if for that kind of stuff. I really do think 30 years down the line, 40 years down the line, because I'm like, I want to retire and not be living on a box on the fucking side of the street. You know, like it was 2021 that really caused that and really like tripped me to be like, shit, I need to invest money so I can just, investing money is not making money. Investing money for me is like securing wealth and like
securing your future. You're trying to offset inflation. And
Exactly. And the funny fucking quip someone in your Twitch chat or maybe Josh's or somebody's, and I was randomly talking about it in someone's Twitch or it might have been my stream, was like, oh, I hope you're not investing in fucking dividend, or not dividend ETFs. So it was like SPY ETFs. And I'm like, what the fuck are you saying? Like the thing that tracks the top 500 companies in the world. I shouldn't be investing in that. What, fucking pharmaceutical companies? You want me to invest in that shit? Seriously? Like, I don't know. It was it was the most Twitch chat thing in the fucking world. But like, you know what I mean? It was like, oh, let me just speculatively invest into this fucking pharmaceutical vaccine company that was going to lose 90% after their third round of trials, you know? Like, or I invest my money into SPY, which will be like, okay, over 50, 60, fucking 100 years. Yeah. Like, it was really funny for me. But
my brain very simple. I'm just like, I save my money, which is really bad because I don't do anything with it. But the goal is to hopefully at the end of this year, just buy a house in the UK that my mum can live in. Like that is the goal. That's the only goal. And that way it's just my mum doesn't have to pay rent anymore.
Yeah.
Which is very pog. And then I've just got a house that will, you know, eventually will be mine, you know? It's like, I mean, it is mine, but eventually I'll just have it. And that's where my money's gone into, which is that, which I think, I don't know, I haven't really looked too much into it, but house prices are supposed to be going down because of like corrections with the market, right? With like, because house prices have just been going up and up and up and up, but with the, just the oncoming recession, like obviously the house prices then get corrected and then they drop down again. So hopefully this year I'll be able to buy a house for my mum.
I mean, the only thing that hasn't gone down, funnily enough, is actually rent. I looked at some like graphs and statistics the other day. It was like rent is the only thing that has like increased, where like housing goes up and down, right? Up and down, up and down. Yeah, it's nuts. It is crazy. My rent increased this year. I'm sure yours did as well.
Yeah, mine did as well. I don't understand how they get away with that when there's so much uncertainty, but I guess are people willing to pay it? I don't know. I know it's a lot of people moving out of my apartment complex, like around like the last few months. Just a lot of moving vans, a lot of trucks, a lot of people moving stuff.
It's like, well, it's too expensive now.
Moving out. Yeah.
That's what I realized how much I hate moving now. I don't know about you. But when we live in the Pepega house, I was like, okay, maybe this is 1 or 2 years worth of shit, right? And then obviously everybody kind of split up, go their separate ways, etc. And I'm like, okay. And then I moved to Glendale, and now I've moved to a different area, and I'm like, I do not want to move again. Fuck that. Like, I love my fish tanks a lot. Like, I love keeping fish. I love like aquascaping and stuff. Moving a fish tank is a pain in the ass. By the way, I haven't shown anybody this yet, Bren. I'm not sure when this episode is coming out. I bought a 22-gallon long tank.
Ooh, long boy, eh?
A long boy.
22 long neck.
A 22 VB long neck.
Long neck.
Get that. Yeah. I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun like river aquascape. I'm going to create a stream, a flow. I might have to buy a wave maker, which is normally for like salt reef aquariums.
What are you going to put into it?
A specific river fish called Pandagara. Pandagara. They are very cool. They're always at my local fish store, and I'm like, I love them. They're like little tube boys. They're very cute, and they cling to rocks in high flowing streams. And I already have a river fish already, my reticulate hill stream note, which I love. But that's going to be a river biotope.
You're going to assemble it on stream?
I was thinking about it, but scaping takes a long while, and it takes me like a few days to get like a scape that I like, because I'm literally just sitting there moving rocks, moving wood, moving rocks, moving wood, and then putting water in and seeing how the flow goes around. So it takes me like a little while. So I might do it near the end when I'm like planting plants and shit like that. But
sure.
It would be good. It would be good stream content, I think. But
I think it would be quite interesting. Yeah,
would not want to
that
move
sounds like a
that.
nightmare moving fish
Yeah.
tanks.
It does.
How do you
It fucking sucks. It fucking
how
sucks.
do you deal with fish tanks if you live in Cali and you get like earthquakes?
Where I live, we don't get that many earthquakes. Like I'll feel them, but like it's fine. And the building is like it's not like super old, but it's like modern enough to have like earthquake. Although I think every building in California, at least high-rise structures,
I think it
have
has
to have
to.
earthquake protection or some shit like that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how that works, but it's fine. I've had an earthquake while I was sitting on my PC. I look at my fish tanks, and it's like the smallest like ripples on the surface. Like
Right.
It's fine.
But you don't have to like, I don't know what would happen if you bolted it to the wall or anything.
Yeah,
I don't know how it works.
I wouldn't be allowed to do that, but they'll be fine. They'll be fine.
They'll be fine.
Well, a lot of the reason why fish tanks crack is if they're seated unevenly, or like they're seated on small particles, like literal like sand, small rocks. But if you put just neoprene foam, it's just like thick foam, like yoga mat.
Basically. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Neoprene foam. Yeah, you just put that under the fish tanks. Like every rimless tank nowadays comes with a mat.
I guess it would just absorb any.
It absorbs
if it's uneven.
Yeah, uneven or like shakes or whatever. Like it's fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm good with that. Yeah. So I don't really want to move because I've got this new skate.
Yeah, that's a pain in the ass. I think I've moved every single year. I think.
Yeah, bro, fuck that.
Of my life for like the past few years. Like I moved to the US in 2018 Video Watch League.
Yeah.
And then I was living with Johnny and Josh, and then I moved out into my own place in 2019, and then 2020 I moved into the Plague House, and then I moved to Austin to live with Wyatt and Kurt, and then I moved out of that into this place, and then this is going to be the first time I've been in a place longer than a year.
Wow,
but
that's crazy.
If this year goes to plan with Valorant, I'm going to be fucking traveling all the time. So I'm never going to be in the apartment really at all, because if it goes to plan, I'm going to be, because I'm already going to Brazil for about a month.
Yeah.
And then I'm going away after that point. And then the Americas split begins as well, like, which is basically, I think, 9 weeks of play. So 9 weeks of, I think like 6 or 7 weeks of regular season and into playoffs. And so because Josh is living in the UK, they're flying us out for stints of like 3 weeks at a time. So I'm going to be living in a hotel, I think, for 3 weeks at a time. I think we're still working on it, but I'm basically just going to be, I'm not even going to be in this apartment.
Oh, God, that's rough. Yeah. Yeah. It feels kind of bad because you're paying rent, but then it's like you need still somewhere to stay. And it's like,
I still need somewhere to stay. I mean, I actually contemplated like how could I minimize everything? Like, could I just like move everything into storage and like only carry the bare minimum with me and just like have like temporary abodes? I don't know, but it's just such a pain in the ass.
Yeah, traveling that much. Like in esports, we don't travel that much anymore, but like that sounds ridiculous. That sounds like me living in Ukraine. We were flying all the time back and forth to Ukraine, then getting kicked out of the country because we weren't allowed back in because we traveled so much to the Ukraine. That's fun.
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell that story on one of these podcasts one day. There is something I've always wanted to ask you, and I don't even know this because I've not really talked to you about it before.
Yeah.
When in your like timeline in your head, do you think you'll either move away from casting, and if you do decide to do that, what would you want to go into?
I like I said previously, I get a lot of fulfillment right now out of casting. Right now I'm in my fucking lane. I'm like focused on this. And I enjoy it a lot. So I can't really see myself stopping anytime soon unless there was some like outside circumstances. Like, for example, if Josh stopped casting, we haven't really spoke about this, but if he ever wanted to stop casting, stop doing broadcast work, it would be very difficult to find a co-caster that I vibed with as well, like we synergized with, and to find somebody I think who just matches him. Because in my opinion, like, listen, I'm biased here, but fucking Josh is the GOAT in esports. Like, he gets overlooked a lot. I think that's partly because he's with me, and we were like fucking we're the clowny boys. Well, listen, I don't think I set a particularly high benchmark for our casting when I was in the Overwatch League. I'm trying to like do better now that we're in Valorant, like they're turning a new leaf, and I think we are setting that standard now. But Josh has always been incredibly capable, and he's like a fantastic broadcast talent. So he's a hard person to replace, I think, if he ever stopped doing it. So I think if Josh ended up not doing it, I would have to find some other avenue. Maybe, never say never, but I I'd have to probably find some outside avenue, but I've never really thought about it.
Right.
It hasn't really crossed my mind that much because I feel like in esports, it's living. I'm always living in the moment. With you never know where you're going to get taken next, and so you can plan ahead kind of, but you never really know what might end up happening. Like you might have to move somewhere else or blah blah blah. I don't know. So it does put a dampener on certain things, but um, yeah, I've never really given it too much thought. But I think genuinely, actually, recently I've kind of like I wouldn't say it's like a passion of mine, but one thing that I've really been trying to do more often has been talent development reviews, like VOD
Okay.
reviews for talent.
Right.
So people have been reaching out. I think it's just been through word of mouth, but a lot of like amateur talent have been reaching out to me about VOD reviews, and I've been doing pretty in-depth VOD reviews with just loads of different people. And that kind of talent development, I think, is incredibly important in esports. It's missing, right? There's not really. I mean, there are resources out there to improve as a caster and as a broadcast talent, but they're hard to find,
Yeah.
and
They're
you don't
not
really
crazy
advertise
about.
them.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to reach out to individuals, and companies themselves that hire you don't do a good job of developing talent. Like they really don't. I mean, you were talking about this with Mitch about like what is the reason talent gets hired, and it's like the people who do the hiring sometimes don't even know what makes good talent, and so how do they even know how to develop talent if that's the case? You know what I mean? They can't go to them for feedback because they'll end up getting some incorrect feedback. But that's been something that I've been dipping myself into, so maybe some sort of capacity in which I could actually just monetize it. I don't know,
Sure.
but yeah,
I think living in
I
the moment
don't.
is quite important, like you said, in esports. It's
Yeah,
everybody almost feels like it's living year to year. Not a bad thing, but it's not like sustainable. For like it could be. That's the thing. You can't even say it's not sustainable because it could be over the 50 years. You don't
yeah.
know.
We don't really know yet
No one
with the state
knows.
of just the industry, right? Because it's so
Exactly.
young.
So young. Yeah.
Um, it's very
I think it's a
very
weird one.
young position that we're all in terms of the industry as well. But we'll see how the next few years end up lining up because I still intend on casting with Josh.
Yeah.
He's moved back to the UK, so for now we're casting like the America side of things. We're flying out a lot, but that's probably not going to be feasible the year after that. So yeah, I don't know. Might end up back in Europe some way or form. I don't know.
That won't be
Just
too bad.
literally taking it in its stride. Yeah, won't be
Yeah.
too bad. It'll be a pain in the ass to move to Europe,
Yeah.
but
Well, I mean,
yeah.
you've already moved every single year, so won't be the worst. I
Yeah.
mean, I've heard Josh's horror stories already about moving, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to take a sharp right hook here, Bren, or a right turn, a hairpin turn, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I
Okay.
don't know why I was thinking about this morning. I was making a coffee. I'm like, you know what I really want to talk about?
What do you want to talk about?
Aliens. Do you believe in aliens or no? Like, do you believe in extraterrestrial life out there or no?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah?
Yeah, isn't it a statistics game at that point?
Yeah?
Are you talking like intelligence life or just life in general? Because life
Let's
in
say
general,
both.
okay, intelligent life is a bit less likely, I think, because maybe there's limitations with just the physics of our universe, but we probably would have seen some evidence of that at this point, just
Okay.
from us probing. Although it is kind of like a needle in a haystack situation because the universe is fucking unfathomably large.
Yeah.
But the for just bog standard life, sure. Like why? I mean, I think at that point it is potentially quite likely. Like there were so many circumstances that had to come together for us to be, we think of ourselves as an intelligent life form, but there were
We're
so many
probably not.
circumstances
Yeah.
so many circumstances that came together for the human race to develop as we are right now. Like so many things had to come together. Not only did you have to have this like vibrant ecosystem where all these multitudes of different life were developing, but a literal meteor had to destroy most of the fucking big predators, and mammals had to rise up, and then there had to be this this little cradle of life in Africa, literally what they call it, this area where our ancestors developed, where they had access to food but also access to planes, and they could evolve, and they worked together, and they learned to throw rocks, and they evolved their fucking rotary cuffs in their arms so they
Yeah.
could
And their
throw rocks and
thumbs and they could grab
effectively
things and
hunt. Yeah,
whole
there were
thing.
so many things that had to happen for us
Yeah.
to get to this point where we're at right now. If you just like, I don't even study like what is it, anthropology, study of human history, but I've read very briefly into it enough to know that it was a ton of circumstances that had to come together, and so that's quite a rare thing, I feel like. But life in general, probably
Yeah.
because we, as well as that, like we look for carbon-based life forms, and we look for planets with water because that's how we know ours began. But there's no reason why life couldn't depend on different
things.
atoms that might be present in our planet, right? That could
like,
develop and evolve that way.
At the bottom of the ocean might as well be a different universe. Like in a different, like things that live down there are just so different from things that live near the surface. The Huddle zone, Haddle, Huddle zone is like the deepest point of the ocean. Victor Vescova, I think is his name. He went to the deepest depths of every single ocean. He was the first man to do it.
That's
he paid
crazy.
for the whole thing on his own, by the way. Like millions
and
millions of dollars.
There's not enough exploration really being done to the bottom of the ocean. We know so little about it.
To be fair, it's fuck all there. Like there's so little things that can be that can live down there, but like things that do live down there, you're like, what the fuck? Like,
surely that depends on your perspective of things. Yeah,
no, that is true. Yeah, just in general though, like you're more likely to find life forms like obviously where the sun can reach, because then plants can grow, microbes, bacteria. But yeah, the things that do live down the bottom, very, 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 very depths, the Huddle zone, like there are things there that are like super fascinating. Like a lot of like, oh shit, dude, they're like woodlouse. They're like those that, what the hell are those that species
water
called?
bugs? Water bears?
No, not like the actual animal name. It's like it's the scientific name for that groups of animals, arthropods. No.
Oh, I know what you're referring to. They've just they haven't really evolved at all. They just existed.
Something pods, but like they're basically giant fucking woodlouse. Podcasters live down at the depths of the ocean.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, but like those things like scavenge on dead things that fall, the debris that falls down from dead things and shit like that. And although one crazy discovery he did find, there's a series on Netflix where he goes to each individual ocean. It's very, very good watch, by the way, if anybody wants to watch it. Victor Vescovo, I think his name was. But he found a crisp packet at the very bottom of the fucking ocean. They were like, what the fuck is that? Because it was squared off, and they were like, that in nature things aren't fucking squared off.
Things don't get squared off.
They were like, holy shit.
I mean,
like,
they do very rarely with like things that form cubic structures
and
like crystal structures can form cubes, but
in general, like it's kind of fucked up, and like it's kind of interesting.
It is.
And they were zooming in on them. They were like, holy shit, is this something brand new
discovery?
A fucking crisp packet, bro.
I'm like, quite sad.
I was like, that's incredibly fucking sad. Like that crisp packet sunk to the bottom of the fucking Huddle zone, bro. Think of how many years that could be there from fucking... Dude, you know who... Someone could have eaten that in the 80s, and it could have like flown through the ocean and
it's probably going to be there for many more years.
Exactly. They couldn't like take it because they didn't have the technology to kind of grab it or whatever. They only have specific technology to, but it was madness, bro. It was madness. The deep ocean obviously really fascinates me, just anything to do with the ocean. And
I genuinely think my brain chemistry got altered by watching the Blue Planet episode while high out of my mind on edibles. And watching the deep ocean portion, that episode where they went to the deep ocean and they looked at like the life cycle that develops around like dead whale carcasses and the things that blossom off the back of that was just like, it was just eye opening to me. I was like, holy fuck, why are we not just stop what we're doing, guys? Stop fucking fighting each other here. We got to explore the bottom of the ocean right now. But that's
think of the money that you could pour into exploration of the ocean, the space or whatever. It's wild. It is fucking
But it loops
wild.
back into talking about things where it's like everybody equates things into economic value. Do you remember when I was talking about this? Like economic talk. People talk when they're talking about the value of things, the value of like a hospital, library, in terms of the economic value. And that's the modern language, the way people think about stuff. But I think it infects stuff like this because it's a part of our world that we know nothing about. Like the exploration of it, it could be completely useless. It could be no economic value at all from it. But there doesn't need to be. Like it's the fact that it's undiscovered, unexplored, and it's part of the theory as to how life even developed on Earth was how they said that, there was some sort of protein soup that may have formed from like heat vents at the bottom of the ocean. Right. That's like some of the logic behind how life may have formed on Earth, or it could have been brought out from an outside asteroid, whatever. Lots of theories. But why not dig deeper? Why not actually invest resources into try and discover the answers in this? Because literally there's never really been a better time. And instead there's so much focus on the economy and the system that we're living in that
making money from
it's
money.
Sad in a way. Yeah, it's sad in a way. And capitalism has got to a point where people really can't think of any alternatives. People cannot remember a time before capitalism. I mean, it's brought great swaths of comfortable living for lots and lots of people, but it's also brought with its lots and lots of problems. Like, it's not a solved system that we're living in right
For
now.
sure.
Which,
And that's what's crazy is that he had to fund it himself, this Victor guy.
yeah,
And he had to fund millions and millions of dollars of building a submarine that could withstand the pressures of
that's
the depths.
crazy.
And I love, like I said, the ocean stuff. And kind of something that really interests me too is living for like longer than 100 years, or like, you know, say me and you live to the ripe old age of like 90 or whatever. I want to be in fucking Futurama. I was watching Futurama last night. I text Bren because I was also high as fuck. I text Bren and dude, it's The Beast with a Billion Backs, the movie, the Futurama film, season 6, I believe, or it might be season 7. And there's a university that I go to, and it's called Fulcrum, and I'm like,
Fulcrum.
Gang, Yodi,
Fulcrum
gang. I was
gang,
like,
come in.
oh, yeah. And I was just like, I was just high out my fucking mind. I texted that to Brent. I was like, what the fuck, bro? But like, that kind of shit is crazy because I love Futurama as well. I've got like I love sealed things. I have a kid robot which makes miniature figures of different, just everything basically. I have a sealed box of blind bags over there, which is like Futurama.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. It's from like 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Big Futurama head. Very Futurama.
I have a Futurama
build.
head. Yeah, I do. I love it. And I think one of the reasons why I love it is because Fry obviously got transported to the year 3000. And like, I'm always like, holy shit, what if I could live that long? Like, I'll give you a fucking crazy, a sea example of this, an animal example. The Greenland shark, the metabolic rate of the Greenland shark is so fucking slow. They live for 300 years. That motherfucker, some of them are older than the United States of America. And that just blows my fucking mind. And I want to be encased in fucking ice, frozen, solid, so I can live to the year 3000. I want to see it, bro. I want to see Cyberpunk 2077. You know what I mean? I want to see those dates.
You'll see a lot of cool things, hopefully, in our lifetimes.
I fucking hope so, man.
That's the pray. That's what I'm praying for. I mean, life expectancy should be going up as well. We're set up better than most. With, you know, as much as I was joking earlier about America being a third world with its, you know, disaster resources that it was supplying to people, we are living in a place where, you know, you are getting more income comparative to the rest of the world. And if there's anything that, you know, the capitalist system is really good at, it's that like we have a comfortable living standard right now that in theory should mean that we live longer and that we're comfortable at the betterment of others, that, you know, labor being exploited elsewhere. But yeah, that's listen, I'm about to get incredibly based very quickly. Just gonna start spitting.
Giga-based podcast episode.
Yeah.
I mean,
you know, but we'll probably live for like 100 years and I think see some things. We just need to make sure that we don't go backwards in various aspects, because there's already evidence of people forgetting a lot of history lessons that are learned. Humans are very short-sighted. We don't really see too far into the future that much. We don't plan ahead that much because we think of things in terms of like, you know, decades and sometimes just our lifespan alone, when we really should just be thinking about concepts of, you know, much further than that. We should be planning for ahead beyond our time.
Yeah, I agree.
But we don't really get that too much.
In reality, how long do we live for in the scale of the universe? Like a fucking
it's a blip.
Not even of a second.
Oh, not even. It's tiny.
Goodbye.
Yep.
You're gone. 80 years old. Let's say 80, 90 years. Boop.
That scares some people when they think of that. I've had this conversation with people. It scares them. But for me, I think instead, I've just got to make the most of the time that I've got right now. You know, I've got to live my life to the fullest and not get bogged down, not get weighed down by certain aspects. If I'm not happy with an aspect in my life, do the best to change it, and do the best to wade through it and make the most of it. Because people have that mindset where they feel like, you know, it's weird actually that humans, we see ourselves as well. We're very short-sighted in terms of our goals and how we see things, but at the same time, we can also just be incredibly like almost pessimistic of our like ability to change in that short amount of time. Because how many times have you heard from people, just like you can see their attitude in the way that they talk about various things of like, oh, it's too late for me to do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's never too late to make a change in your life. Like, it's never too late to alternate. Like, people think that their path that has been laid out for them to follow for their whole lives has been set in stone from the beginning, from their ages of like 1 to 23 or whatever, when they're going through some sort of education system. But it's not true. You can go into education systems at any point in your life, really. You can relearn, you can gather new experiences, and you don't have to be set in stone with anything. You can be the change you want to see in your life, and there's no, you might have regrets or something, but you should let that fuel you and push you into making the most of it.
I think that's
Yeah.
quite wild. Yeah, like at the end of the day, you are 20. You reach the ripe old age of 25, and like the joke in esports is like you're a boomer as soon as you hit like X age, and it's wild to me a lot of the time because I'm turning 30 this year. Right, I don't look 30. I also don't act like a motherfucking 30-year-old. None of us do. We're all act like kids still, and it's crazy for me to think that double that age, 60, I'm gonna be like actually awake at 30 years old. Because when you're a fucking child, I'd say naught when you were fucking born to maybe like 15 or whatever. It's just like, who gives a shit? Like, no responsibilities, no, like, you don't, for me, in my head, I'm like, I don't really count that as like, oh, I can make decisions of my own. For the next like 30 years, it's all me, baby. I can make fucking decisions. I can do this, I can do that, I can do this, I can do whatever the fuck. And it's all me. And I'm going to remember those times because I don't remember when I was fucking 10 years old. I've got very few memories of like early, like from ages from 0 to 10. Like I've got a few here and there, but like nothing crazy.
Yeah.
I don't want to go like too deep or anything, but like, when someone passed away, like my grandmother passed away like last year, and I was like, holy shit. Like that really fucking hit me because she like half raised me and my brother because we lived so close to them when I was growing up. And I was like, God damn. She was always the one that was like, spend your money, do things, like spend your money, go do shit. I cringe at spending $180 on a fish tank. I cringe at it. But then I'm like, why would I cringe at that? Like, it's money that I like, that I've earned. Why not spend it on things I like? And like, with her, I was like, God damn. She was always trying to make me do stuff, or like always trying to like, just go do whatever the fuck you want, do whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter what age you are at the end of the day. Like you said, go do education if you really want to. It's, we got incredibly deep here, but
well, I think
it's mad. Like I want to live in the moment, but then also like,
and people talk about like being scared to pass on, right? To pass away, and of the the prospect of not really knowing what's on the other side of death and things. But I've kind of like been thinking about this more or less like a shower thought, but almost just, I don't know, thinking about for example, your grandmother has had an impact on you by raising you, and and like her ideology, her ideas and things, and that's that's had an effect on you because of the way you're thinking, like, why am I worrying too much about spending $180 or whatever? But everyone you meet, every person you meet will have that sort of impact on you in some way or form. Very subtle changes, just from things they say to you, the interaction you have with them. You can change someone's day completely from the way that you interact with people. And so when you're a big part of someone's life and you have impact in that kind of way, your impact just resonates out. You affect how they would develop as a person, you affect how they are as a person, and your impact is felt for, years and years and years onwards as well. It just ripples out is how I look at it. So even if there is like, even if we don't know anything about, life after death or any of those concepts, I think when I get to the point when I'm like 100 or something and I'm gonna pass away, I'll know that I won't be physically present, but the things I've done throughout my life and the people I've interacted with and the people I've stayed close with, you've had a tangible impact on them, and the goal is for that to be positive. The goal is for those changes to be positive, for you to have a tangible positive impact, because that's going to reverberate out, and those people who you've had an impact on are then going to go and meet other people, and they're going to intake what you've interacted with them in the manner. They're going to process that in their own way, subconsciously, consciously, however it happens, even in the smallest of moments, and that will hopefully shift and affect people onwards. So I think that you're always affecting stuff, even beyond. So it's something that I've kind of like come to the conclusion of, because I'm pretty agnostic in terms of just religion and other stuff. I grew up quite in a Catholic family, but I never really believed in it too much. I would say, like, you kind of you go along with it as a kid, and then the frontal lobe develops a little bit, and then you just start questioning stuff, and then I was just like, I don't know if I believe this, but I think I would say I'm agnostic, but that's like a line of thought that I've been going down recently, just in terms of, even at the worst, which is just potential nothingness on the other side of things. You had impact on the world in your own little way, and you had impact on people around you, which is it's enough for me. It's enough for me
Definitely.
knowing that, and also a driving factor, I think, to try and do a lot of good in the world with the time that you've got. So yeah.
I think that's a good way of thinking about it. Like your little impact on someone will have a little bit of impact on someone else, on someone else, on
Hmm.
someone else, on someone else. You don't have to be written down in a history book to be remembered at the end of the day,
Yeah.
or like
Yeah.
written down in history. Obviously, YouTube's
That's the
going to last
human
for a
ego.
billion years, so we're going to be on YouTube, Bren, for a billion years. So it's all
Oh, a
good.
billion years. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the human ego, though. People wanting to
that
have a
is true.
legacy and
Yeah,
last.
definitely,
And yeah, I've been
definitely.
trying to kill my ego over the last 2 years. I'm not even kidding. The last like
Okay.
year, I've been trying to kill my ego. Not in the I'm going into the mushrooms. I'm gonna go fucking just eat mushrooms off the floor in the woods. Not in that kind of way, but genuinely, like I've realized that I think a lot of the reasons as to why we get into our line of work and trying to be like public figures, a lot of it stems from some like wanting to be, wanting to be in the limelight a little bit, wanting to be, having the spotlight shined on you. And with that comes, as in broadcast work, I've noticed as well, just like with a lot of broadcast talent, a lot of it comes as a sense of arrogance, like narcissism develops,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Hardcore in some people, where, it might be in some ways deserved, like they're allowed to be that way because they are so good. But I don't think it's healthy, because what ends up happening is I think that what I've noticed, the trends I've noticed just in my time in esports of looking at people I look up to, looking at people who were on the top of their craft and have actually just dropped since then, is that ego, that desire to be the central figure, the desire to be the best, and that comes with that baggage of like narcissism, and it often blinds you, I think, to some things that might be causing your downfall, and it blinds you to other aspects of work that um, form like complacency, I think, like the aspects like that. Because that's what I've been trying to avoid in my line of work and my thinking now, is just avoid that complacency no matter what. But also, where does it derive from? How does that come about? And I think the answer I came to, me personally, was that I think in broadcast work we don't really get good feedback. We don't have a
True.
good measuring stick to measure how well we are doing
Yeah.
individually. And so people will use social media followings, they'll use Reddit threads, comments, things like that. What is the public perception of us on our work, and are we doing well based on that? But that's just not a good measuring stick, because that can change on a whim, and you're never going to keep exponentially growing. And then sometimes you can be doing really well and it won't match it. And so you have to find your own measuring stick that doesn't abide by that. And part of that was this year me trying to separate the ego, the narcissism, hoping for Twitch clips of my voice in the background, and focusing entirely on just the work itself, and making sure that if the players watch this back, would they feel like I have done the job? Have I done it justice? Did I do this moment justice? Did I do the match justice? And so that's been my path, because yeah, I think, I'm not saying it's like the only way to go about it in broadcast work, but I think a lot of people get into it for those reasons, to be the center of attention, and then it comes with bad things and bad habits.
It does bite you in the butt eventually,
Yeah.
because that measuring stick, like you were talking about, it can't be based off of like public perception, because at the end of the day, it's like the cycle of misery. I think I talked about this with Mitch, but like, you're going to be hated at some point, you're going to be loved at some point, then you're going to be hated, then
Yeah.
loved, then hated, then loved, then loved, then hated, then hated, then loved. It's like, dude, at the end of the day, not everybody is going to love hearing your voice. I'm sure there are some people out there, as much as crazy as this is to say, that are like, man, I wish Mitch wasn't doing another fucking grand finals.
Yeah.
Because it's like the same person doing it again. But in reality, he is fit for the job. Him and Matt have been casting together since the inaugural season. So it
Yeah.
kind of makes sense why they continue to cast the finals. Because if you just take it on, not even on merit, because that doesn't really come into it, just like skill as a broadcaster, he's going to be doing every single finals. And I think for me, that's okay. Like, you're going to expect the best pair to do it, and that's reasonable. But then obviously a selfish part of me is like, fuck, man, I've had 4 different partners over 4 years. Like, when is my time? Can I do it? And this goes back to what we spoke about at the very fucking beginning of this episode. It's just like, how do you value yourself? Are you doing well? It's hard to say, because there is no
really difficult.
standardized measuring stick there. Yeah.
And so yeah, you gotta, and so that's one thing I've been trying to do is develop that measuring stick, develop my
Yeah.
standard for measuring myself. And what it's come down to is basically every time I cast, I review the last map I did.
Yeah.
Like a map in the series that I just casted, I review my cast on it, and I come down and I make notes of things that I did well, things that I did poorly. I come away with a bunch of stuff every single fucking time because no one's perfect. Everyone makes mistakes with their shit, and I whittle it down to a small amount of things to correct, so I don't overwhelm myself. You don't want to go into the next thing overwhelming yourself, and that's been my process over last year, and it's worked really well. And it's also created. I mean, it's created some funny moments as well because trying to explain this as well to other broadcast talent. I remember speaking to Pansy about it,
Right.
and saying to Pansy like, "Oh, I've been trying to like kill my ego for the reasons I just explained." And Pansy comes from like the ESL environment, which from what Mitch has told me, is very competitive. They would help each other
Yeah.
to improve, but hyper competitive against one another, and you're comparing yourself to your peers all the time. Um, I I try not to compare myself to my peers too much, but I will. I watch their work, and I'll take things that I like, and I'll take, I'll spot things that I don't like maybe, and I'll try and learn from their work. But what I've been trying to do is just compare myself to myself rather than other people around me, and it's been a bit healthier, and I think it's been working out quite well as well, just in terms of the
That's
improvements
good.
I've been making. Yeah.
Good,
But
good,
it's
good.
but it's a foreign concept when I've been trying to explain it to other broadcast talent at times. They can't get it, I think,
Yeah.
because it's so normal
I,
for people to get into it because
they're probably just not at that stage where they kind of like self-reflection and that kind of stuff. Like it's very different between veteran broadcast talent and
yeah.
not beginner, but you know what I mean. Like people that have not been around those ESL days or anything like that.
Yeah.
It is a bit different.
But like yeah. I just spot it in the way people act
Yeah.
online, in person when you talk to them,
Sure.
because insecurity is rife. Everybody's insecure, but for you wouldn't think it for some broadcast talent, but the way they act is incredibly insecure sometimes. Like at the smallest amount of social media criticism and things, they'll let it really tank in their heads their own self value. And I think it's because they built that model. That is how they define their success. As much as you tell yourself, I don't care what people think of me. Ultimately, that is a large reason as to why you as a caster, you at the end of the day, I think a lot of people get into broadcasting because they like the sound of their own voice. They like being that center of attention, and
Yeah.
so yeah, that's what I've been trying to do recently. Worked out well. It has so far. So
All right. We just took a brief break. I need to pee so bad. So we just took a brief break.
yeah,
Bren, I'm assuming you got some tea or something.
yeah, I got myself some tea. Went to the bathroom, little chill break. So I was saying,
Nice.
like, I mean, you were like, oh,
Yeah,
I
go
guess
on.
we'll call it wraps, and I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah. And I'm
down to
like,
keep
well, I just
going,
need
and
to
you're
piss.
like,
Yeah.
all right.
We'll just take a break. Yeah. I mean, that's fine. Let's continue that thread, Brent. You were talking about how egos, and obviously for the viewers, it's like half a second later, but like we just took a quick break
Yeah,
and
we
my
just
brain's
took
all
a break.
frazzled. But yeah, like egos in commentary and kind of the self-realization that you can just be better, and not everything has to be a race for the fucking top. And if you just put out good
Yeah,
work and not listen to the general populace, that's the big lesson actually I got from you when we was into Pepega house, was actually muting social media completely. I only see
yeah,
replies and likes and I don't see likes and retweets anyway. I use TweetDeck, but I only see replies from people that I follow, and I
yeah,
think it saves mental, and it doesn't really inflate your ego that much, But
yeah,
then it also
yeah.
doesn't drag you down because you don't see the people that hate you for being you. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. You don't see the excess. I mean, literally, I say this all the time from literally no intellectual basis. Like, I've got no education in the human mind, the way the human mind works. But I say this all the time. But just when we are developing as humans, when you're in a village somewhere, you weren't meant to intake the opinions of hundreds of thousands of people. You're meant to intake, the opinions of the people around you, and you're talking to them. You had a you had a sphere of influence of where you were talking to people in your social circles, but um, it wasn't as big as it is now with social media and the effect that has on the human mind. But yeah, the approach that I found, it works for me. It's quite difficult as well. Still, like it's trying to separate all the things that previously used to drive me. The previous things that you used to find to get better at broadcast work. But it's nice. It's a nice alternate path that I think is much more sustainable. Because the reoccurring theme that I see all the time, like I said, I briefly mentioned it, but there is just insecurity in the way when I speak to not only new broadcast talent but veteran broadcast talent as well,
Seriously.
and they're insecure about their own work. Everybody's insecure to some degree, but to the point where I've seen people that I respect very deeply, like responding to people in Reddit threads or talking about one little comment that they received on social media, and that defining them in their heads for that from their work. And I just think it's unhealthy. But the reason that even derives in the first place is because that's literally what most people's models are built on for success in commentary work. I'm just repeating the same points that we did before the break, but it feels like it's new because we've taken a 5-minute break.
Yeah, that's fine. I think that's okay. Yeah, it is wild, and you say that even veteran talent do that, and it doesn't like disappoint. Well, I guess it does disappoint me slightly when I do see those veteran talent responding to that stuff, and I'm like,
Yeah.
why? Like, you know better. You've been around motherfuckers long enough, and like, I'm not going to say anybody's name, but there are people that I do genuinely look up to responding to that stuff, either on Twitter. I don't use Reddit anymore, so it's mainly on Twitter. And I'm like, dude, come on. You're one of the fucking best.
Yeah.
And you're doing this
Yeah.
with random motherfuckers on Twitter, of all places? Like, come on. Like, you know better, and I know you know better as well. But like, sometimes I feel like, especially social media, and it's designed to do this. It is designed to suck you in and hold you there.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't really blame some people for falling into that trap, because it's designed to do that. People have degrees in like there's probably some kind of word for it, but like human stimulation and just keeping them glued to one thing. Like TikTok is a good example, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, like short form content.
Yep.
Like, people have degrees in this shit.
Anything
and they
that
want to
gets-
keep you on the platform.
Yes, they want to keep you on the platform. They need your time. Yeah, and yeah, the systems built into social media that make it worse as well, I think. But yeah, it is a bit of a shame as well, just because it is people I've looked up to. But I don't know. It's a unique path to get here, because I've been quite privileged in some way. Funnily enough, I think some of the biggest strides I've made in my commentary work is when I've just been sat on the sidelines listening all the time, which has been the first 2 years when I was doing the analyst desk in the Overwatch League. There was I attribute this a lot actually to my commentary even now, like um, being where it's at. But when you're on the analyst desk, we were listening. Like, the whole analyst desk was listening for multiple hours a day. Like, every single day, all these matches, 4 caster pairs in the Overwatch League, and we're listening to them all the time. And so from that, subconsciously, consciously, whatever it is, even if your focus is on the game, you're picking up on things they did well. You're picking up on things you didn't like. You're picking up on things that, you actually really respect about this. Because, you talked about Josh's ability of storytelling. It's one of the things that me and Josh, I think, do really well, is like we split up and do our preparation ahead of time, like for Valorant matches, but we'll come together and talk storylines and big picture stuff, and we'll align on the big aspects that we think are important to really highlight in a match. And we think about the way we want to weave those storyline narratives and the best times to weave them into matches throughout as well. In Valorant, it's quite easy because we get the round by round basis, and we know roughly where we're at, and we get a 2-minute break in the halftime, so we can speak again off camera. What do we want to do here? How do you feel about this? Blah blah blah. Back and forth communication about that. But that storyline focus, like focusing on those storylines, I would attribute to, I think, the biggest strength of Seth and Wolf when I was listening to them cast, because they were very good at the storytelling aspect.
Yes,
Massively good at that. Wolf is very good at the emotional storyline aspect. And so that's something that I really liked about their casting. Took that away. Mitch and Matt, one of the things I really appreciate about them is like the contrast that they have in terms of their style. You're not going to get that with me and Josh. So it's like, it's not pointless to try and imitate that. But, there's plenty of good takeaways. Like Mitch, you can just, from a technical aspect, the guy has clearly honed his craft over many, many years and is fantastic at that. You're always going to learn something from listening to Mitch. And like, even, Semler and Hex, who are hated at certain points of the Overwatch League by the wider community, there were still some things that I could take away that was quite good from those guys. As much as you can critique Semler, I think, for not having too much passion for the game itself, he was still quite a well-rounded broadcast talent with a lot of experience at the time that you could pull from. It's a lot of people, and then Monty and Dora, of course. I think Monty is particularly good at being able to articulate analytical points in a really, really nice way, which I don't use too much, but it's there was stuff that I could pull from every single caster duo that you're listening to all the time, constantly listening. And then when it's finally time for me and Josh to cast in 2020, when we started, we had all this experience of just listening and what we wanted to get out of casting itself that we could pull from and kind of shape into our own style, which which is it's quite beneficial. You learn a lot from listening to other people.
You do, and that's, I think, a big thing. I think I talked about this before, definitely on another episode, but listening to other casters and other games too, I think helped me a lot in commentary. And yeah, I don't think Semler was the most liked human of all time, but if you remove the face and you remove the person from the equation, like if you just listen technically, Semler is very good. He's a very good, technically, he's a very good caster. And that's what you got to kind of take away from those people. Yeah, Monty, articulation, his ability to articulate points is very good. People don't like him, but he is very good at his fucking job. Yeah. Like his color casting is spot on when it comes to technique and the way he conveys points. He might not be the smartest motherfucker in the room. He's not an ex-pro that can go way deep down in the weeds like someone like Jake or like Custer can, or like, League of Legends pros. But like Monty is very smart. He knows exactly what kind of points to hit on, and like his work ethic too, like watching VODs and stuff like that is up there when it comes to commentary as well. And you've really got to find your own style and the way you dive into your own commentary. You can't be copying someone else, otherwise you don't want like 4 plays sounding the fucking same. You know what I'm saying? Like you want people. I love Rap God. All people should do. Dude, if you listen to 4 people do the same shit, like just in different accents, like bruh, you're gonna hate it eventually. Like
it's the stylist. I mean, part of it, and
is bad.
That's something that's quite cool. Is I think when you have those big learning moments in anything that you do, any craft that you do, I think you can apply this to. But for me, it was like the stylistic, noticing like, okay, Mitch, Uber Leslie, right? This guy's got a fucking crazy vernacular. His amazing vocabulary, and he's able to just weave it in and out of his casting. But that's not something you can emulate. That's not something you can replicate by just trying to do it, because the reason he has that is because in his day-to-day life he is quite an articulate guy. He is very articulate when he's speaking just in his day-to-day, and so it's like it is second nature. For me personally, I come from this working class background that my family weren't correcting me when I was pronouncing words wrong. They weren't using particularly big words themselves because they're working class background. None of them were really in like higher education. They read, they're pretty they're worldly, I would say. They're worldly, my family, but they're not, they're not, they're not well versed when it comes to just like expanding the vocabulary. And when you're going through your formative years as a kid, I'm just, I am who I am. I'm not going to really change that too much. You keep learning, but that's what I'm building off of. And so I recognized when I was looking back at a lot of my work was one of my biggest strengths actually is my vocal control, because it's not necessarily the vocabulary. It's not necessarily the biggest, the witty quips that you're weaving in and out with, the way you describe a certain play, but it's the levels that you can apply to like moments of excitement and how you deliver that with your vocal control. That's my biggest strength as a caster. And this year, the biggest task is going to be keeping that going, but also trying to push myself in new directions, actually trying to incorporate and widen my vocabulary a little bit more. It's just, baby steps, try not to get overwhelmed and work towards that. Do you have any goals that you're trying to work with your casting?
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because you're going to be like, that's a fucking joke. But for me, I don't know what my biggest strength as a caster is yet. I really don't.
I think that's normal though.
Which is something that I've realized too, is that I think it's pretty normal for a lot of commentators, especially where we're at, to not realize what they're good at. Yeah. I know I can just get in there, do a good job. And I'd say one of my more defining factors in my commentary, which is something I'm going to push more, is that I will do color, but also play by play at the same time. I think I'm very good at like breaking down individual moments as they happen, because I play the game so much. I had a scheduled tweet because I don't like tweeting live. I'll just schedule it for the next fucking 5 days, and then there we go. But I played 500 games of ranked season 2.
Holy shit!
Across 2-3 accounts maybe, mainly on my main account. Like I had 450 on my main account.
That is crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot of games.
When I was playing my most, I think I hit like 400, but that was crazy amounts of Overwatch that I was playing.
Yeah, I play a lot of games. Like,
yeah,
it's crazy. But then that kind of aids me in my commentary because I know exactly, like, Overwatch sound design is very good, and it'll be very hard to say that you can't notice every single ability in Ultimate that goes off. But I find myself very quickly and easily being able to pick up on things when I play it in game. Yeah. I know the sound of Swift Step. I know the sound of Suzu getting thrown, not exploding. Yeah. Arnane getting thrown, not exploding. Sleep dart between normal dart and sleep dart. Like there's a very small sound difference. Like small things like that. And I think that is a strength of mine, but I wouldn't say it's my best strength as a commentator. So like, I think my goal for like casting this year would be finding that strength. And it's been a little bit difficult.
It's hard because you don't have a consistent partner.
Exactly what I was going to say. It's been difficult because I haven't had a consistent partner for years. My most consistent casting partner, not in Overwatch, or like casting partner is my like esports career, is a guy called Scoundrel. We did League of Legends together. We did Vainglory together. We did every single small mobile game under the sun for ESL together. He was my most consistent partner. If I could cast with him for every single day of my fucking life, I probably would, because we do get along very well and we're like close friends, and it's very easy. And you know, maybe not like, obviously, maybe I'd find a different partner somewhere else that would gel with better. But like at the moment, that's not really, I can't really do that when I've got a different partner every fucking year. And I don't mind. I like being a flexible guy. And in 2021, the dark days, I was a color caster for the Overwatch League. I was like, well, I could be a color caster. Like, that's fine. I like learnt that. And I watched a lot of like Josh, for example. And I do credit Josh for a lot of my color casting. And it took me a while to kind of get to grips with it, because I'm like, oh my God, I want to fucking scream so bad right now with this fight. But I can't. But yeah, having a consistent partner, I think is a good thing. And I think a lot of commentators do need to cast with other people, but the frequency which I've done it, which I do not blame the league for,
I think it just offsets you. Yeah. It means you don't have that baseline, because when you're working with other people, they have their own styles and tendencies that they're bringing into the mix with casting, and you have to adjust yourself. You have to, you both have to adjust yourself to each other to, you know, find the middle ground between them. But if you're doing that every year, you won't ever be able to build off of it. You know, you can build it, but
coming in fresh every year.
So one of the things you do carry over though with multiple duos, and one of the things that I think you're very good at is actually that technical aspect, much better than most other people. Your technical aspect in commentary, even though you don't see that yourself. I think that is just it's a natural thing, because you are casting with so many different people. It's one of the things that you're going to be improving on over time, is that technical aspect, which I would say that you've always done pretty well. And so, yeah, whenever I've listened to your work, I thought that was quite good. But it's difficult, I think, in your situation, because, like you said, you're moving around all the time with different partners, so it's hard. I'm quite very grateful that I've been able to stick with Josh for as long as I have, in terms of casting, and I want to keep that going as long as possible. Just as long as basically he wants to, until he gets sick of me. It's
you make
been
such a good product together. It's hard to see you apart, you know, which is it's weird, because I always thought like LEC has the best way of doing it. And I still kind of think that, because they do have a duo system where like Medic is with Vedi, and they have Medi-Vedi, this kind of like duo. But then they also cast with other people too. But like Medi-Vedi is kind of like, oh, you know, that's the duo to do like big games. Or at least from when I watched, I haven't watched in a long time, but like that was my kind of perception. And I always thought that was kind of the best casting format, is that you have a static duo, but you move around sometimes. But I'm now, as I'm approaching my 4th year of the Overwatch League, I'm now like, do I want that, or do I want a solid partner for the next few years or whatever? It's very difficult. It's a very difficult thing to think about. I can't imagine having another the same casting partner for 2 years in a row. Like, I just can't. I'm just so used to starting afresh. I loved casting with Hex. I think casting with Hex, and I think it's a lot of like roasting the glasses in a way, because it was my first year in the league, but I loved casting with Hex, because Hex just let me get away with fucking everything. I just loved being, I love being in charge and like taking control of the cast. And I love just fucking going, whoa, color casting. Like, I will talk about this point, and then at Hex, I'll bring you in and you do this shit. And I really enjoy that. And I know some color casters fucking hate that.
Some color casters need that.
You stick to your lane, you know, like.
Yes. Yeah. in their time. I think it's funny that you mentioned like the LEC way of doing it with the rotating pairs and whatnot, because I feel like that actually just makes it it limits their casting a lot more. It's very polished, but I think because you are forced to work with so many different people, you have to follow a formula with your casting, right? Everyone, you have to kind of follow a formula with the way that you the flow of which you follow the game. And every game has a flow, and every caster should really be following it. But I think it does limit the creativity that you're allowed when you actually have two, a duo who end up working on their own style or their own pairing that works in one particular way. Because that kind of manner of swapping around your duos all the time, the only way you get some sort of consistency is if you both agree across the board fundamentally on the way that you're supposed to cast the game. Which I personally, this might sound really just arrogant just saying it, but I think casting is an art form where it can't be confined to a formula, like a flow chart of the way you're supposed to cast it.
Agreed.
And some people's strengths, like some people have ideas, some people are very good. I've spoken to like top talent that I really respected, and they're like, no, my way is the best way. This is what I really respect in casting. And it's like, okay, well, fair enough, but the people you're looking over are also quite good in these aspects. And the reason, and because you're so confined to your one point of view, you're missing all of these other things that they are doing really well that I think is a fantastic. So staying open-minded is pretty big with casting, I think, and being able to incorporate lots of different things and make sure that you're willing to adjust and change your setups as well. I'm very scared of complacency, Jack.
I know.
I'm very scared of complacency.
I think every caster should be scared of complacency.
Yeah, I've seen it grip too many people. So
yes, definitely. I think it's quite a scary prospect getting complacent with commentary. And I'm going to be honest, I can't get, I would feel for myself anyway, I can't get complacent because I'm with new people every year. If I get complacent, then I'm done because I need to work hard making sure this duo is up to scratch. I don't think people care that much, to be honest with you, Bren. I don't think people give a fuck. But it does take a little while for you to get to grips with your partner and to get on the same level. And COVID casting and casting from home doesn't help that. When I cast with Rose, it was difficult to begin with because we're not together in the same fucking room. As soon as we went to a LAN, I was like, oh my God, I forgot what this was like.
This is goated. Yeah.
Like, holy shit. I can just be like, put my hand on my co-caster's like, arm, just like, whoa, like no, you gimme kind of thing. Like just small things like that. It just gets taken away with home broadcast. You just can't do that shit. So like getting to grips with a new partner takes longer when you're not in a live fucking environment. And something that I just kind of want to add on to this too, with you and Josh, Mitch and Matt, like just duos, Sean Gares and DDK, etc. There is a brand that is also built there too. There is a brand that is built upon two people that consistently cast together. And I'm not talking consistent for in a year. I'm talking consistent over a couple of years at minimum that people resonate with, which I think is also very important to a league as a whole, because you want people to tune in and enjoy themselves. Obviously, at the end of the day, the game has to be enjoyable, but you are there as a supplement to add more enjoyment and excitement to the game. And I think it isn't the worst thing in the world when, for example, myself is chopping and changing partners. But if you do have a few static duos over a few years, then it does create a better product overall in the long run, because people associate Matt with Mitch, etc. Or like at this point, Seth and Wolf for a long time, and now Seth and Avril. It's there's a lot that goes into that too when it comes to like building a brand around that duo, which I think you and Josh are obviously spectacular at, because you've been working together for so fucking long. It's Bren Josh, like that's who it is, Bren Sideshow, and that's
it's been for
pretty cool.
many years now. I think our first cast together we weren't casting regularly together in TF2, but 2016 was when we first casted together, and so we're like 3 years away from casting together for a decade.
That is crazy.
That is crazy, right?
A decade.
Because at a certain point, if we just kept casting together, we would take over a lot of the consistent duos that have been casting together for long periods of time. Because right now, it feels like a short lifespan almost, where esports is so uncertain that a lot of casters either don't want to do it because their circuit that they're working in is so unsustainable for them, like on a personal health level. You see this in Counter-Strike a lot, like Counter-Strike has, consistent tier 1 talent, but there will be times where they just get rotated out and duos will break up because of reasons. And I think a lot of it is the really stressful schedule that the CS casters end up living.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of like long-standing esports duos. I'm probably like forgetting a lot of them in
Monty
maybe
Doa,
some other ones, but Monty Doa, but I don't think they cast together anymore that much. Tastosis do,
they
I
don't
think,
cast
occasionally,
together
but
anymore.
they don't really.
Yeah, Artosis has moved to Canada now, so he's not
Yeah.
cast. Or like he was casting his last round at GSL, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, a lot of like the big name duos have kind of gone now. In League of Legends, they're always kind of mixing and chopping and changing people around. That's always been kind of a thing with League.
Yeah.
Whereas like Overwatch League, it's been static for the most part. Counter-Strike, they're chopping and changing because, well, that's for a different reason. That's their circuits are all way different to anybody else in fucking esports.
Yeah.
Yeah, there aren't many like long-term duos left.
Yeah.
That is still working on the same game together.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of names that I'm just not thinking of, but I know
Definitely.
CS has got a lot of duos that have just been
cover every
grinding for
esport.
years. You know what I mean? Like CS has got tons of duos that have just been grinding for years and they're only just breaking in. Like yeah. It's just wild to think about that because in my mind I'm still learning so much in esports. So I'm trying to keep that malleable mindset where I'm just always trying to take in experiences and trying to improve. That sometimes I forget that at this point I am a fucking seasoned vet of esports.
Yes.
Like, just
doesn't feel like it though,
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it at times,
Yeah.
but I think that's just because trying to keep an open mind and trying to not get complacent. Because I think that's one of the attitudes that develops when you've been around for a long time, is just the kind of arrogance that comes around with just like, well, I'm just going to keep doing what I've been doing. And then suddenly there's like a 21-year-old broadcast talent that's just been grinding and prepping, and they're like, they're really improving at a rapid rate, right? It's just, they just come out of nowhere. You never know. It's just you're always going to stay on your toes.
That's what's scary about esports. Anybody can come out of anywhere, out of left field, and it's especially over the last few years with like COVID and COVID casting, and like a lot of casters have sprung up because COVID, and either they want to earn some money or like it's just like, well, I'll do this thing, I'll try this thing, like hobby casters.
Yeah.
It's a big discussion we have with Mitch.
I was
previous
watching
post, and yeah, it's interesting to see the landscape of casting change, and that's why going back to kind of the future talk. Like, that's why I'm like, holy shit, what's this going to be like in 10 years? What's this? Is the Overwatch going to still be around? Is Overwatch going to be around? Like, is Valorant going to be around? League, etc.? What's going to happen? It's very uncertain, and being complacent, especially now, is the worst fucking time to be. Any time is a bad time to be complacent.
Yeah.
But especially with how esports and like different leagues are kind of popping up. Very rarely, I think Valorant's one of the best cases, but very rarely do you have a new game that comes up. It's like, whoa, AAA, fucking esports league. That never happens. It was the Overwatch league before that. Like,
it's running into problems where it's been so the talent development just hasn't really been there in Valorant, I would say, just in terms of broadcast commentary, because a lot of the talent decisions early on was very gatekeepy. So like just a lot of the same people, and a lot of people who maybe deserved opportunities weren't getting them because of undercutting and all the rest of it. You discussed it in the other episode with Mitch, but I think that has long-standing issues now. That's kind of like a thing now where when I was talking earlier about something that I could maybe move into, but talent development is a part of that. Because listen, if I want Valorant to succeed, it can't just be from the point of view of I should be casting every grand finals because eventually I'll be good enough and I will get to that point where I'm casting every grand finals. No, I want to be working with a seasoned broadcast team that knows that the product comes first. I want to be working with people that I know are the best, to the point where if I don't cast the grand finals at an event, I don't care, because I know that the other duos that I'm working alongside are going to be good enough that they can carry that kind of, they can carry the torch in that manner. That kind of rotation that you have, where you have that respect, that mutual respect for your peers, and bringing everybody up to that level. I think Valorant has just faced a lot of issues where they've just been, the talent that they've been getting as well. Just it feels difficult. I think it feels difficult. I think for talent, for anyone who's just trying to come up as a commentator, to get that improvement, because the resources are just few and far between, unless you're actively seeking out like VOD reviews from other people. But a lot of people don't even do that,
which is wild to me. I think with a lot of commentators, when because we actually, we technically came up at the same time, like started commentary. I like got my first paycheck or like my first invoice fulfilled by ESL in 2016. I still have a log. I still
I was casting for free in like 2015, 2016.
Yeah, there you go. So like roughly around the same time.
Roughly the same time.
Into it. And like it has changed a lot since then. Obviously, we're in very different positions compared to what we were back then. But there weren't many casters back then. And I wouldn't say I was free to do what I wanted, but I got brought in by Xscoundrel, funnily enough, because Medic or Sona at that time was his permanent duo. They were the UK boys. They were the fucking mafia. They were the ones that were getting the League of Legends gigs because they were the fucking best. And no shit, they're the fucking best. Like, Xscoundrel's not doing casting as much anymore, which sucks because he's a very fucking good color caster. He can chat shit for fucking hours. It's crazy. But like Aaron, who's in LEC, is one of the best League of Legends casters in the world right now. Like Pepega.
I didn't mean to interrupt your thought here.
Go.
I was going to say, are there really more casters these days than there have been before?
Absolutely.
Like, what are you? Because when I was coming up in the scene, and I'll be working like, when I say I was working for free around that period of time, it wasn't like I was undercutting people and saying I'll work around for free. It was literally like amateur leagues that needed casters, and I was giving them the experience. But I noticed the same level. There's a huge, back when I was coming up, there was a huge swath of people at that level all alongside me. There was just many names of people who would be casting those tournaments and things, and some of them to this day are still casting, but they haven't quite made it. I think, I'm not sure. Like, is it just that the industry's grown and there's more different spheres where you're noticing it? Because when I was coming up in Overwatch, I noticed kind of like the similar level of talent casters trying to get into Overwatch casting around the same time as like Valorant started. A lot of parallels to that, where there's just like, again, whole load of amateur talent that are trying to get into Valorant as this new game that's kind of cropped up. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just not paying attention to enough spheres, but
maybe I'm not paying attention, to be fair, because you're starting to reignite some fucking memories. I'm like thinking back at it now, like, okay, so who was casting at the time I was casting? Because I was casting with Xscoundrel for like a long time. Like I said, I was doing ESL Meisterschaft, which is the German league. I was doing all these fucking mobile games. I did Vainglory, their league circuit and shit like that. We ended up doing Worlds and World Finals, actually, which is like the biggest casting event at that point. I was like, holy shit, World Finals, that was Pog. But there were a few organizations, I actually kind of remember now. Compete League, they are definitely not around anymore. They were a League of Legends tournament organizer, and I remember getting in their Skype group at one point, and like they were organizing, and I was like, hey, can I like come and cast? Like, I'd love to. I never got a shot at Compete League at all, but then I was doing the NUEL anyway, the National University Esports League, so it didn't really matter. So I was just like, oh, okay, whatever, it's fine. So maybe actually I skipped over all that shit. Maybe I was that fucking loner over there, and then actually all these people existed, but I just didn't know of.
I don't know.
It just felt, I think because now I have like a overview of things that are happening in like various esports that I just didn't realize back then because I was a shrimp over there.
Right.
I'm not sure. It's difficult to say, but it just COVID, at least for me, I was like, holy fuck, there were a lot of casters, bro. Like,
because a lot of people had free time, right?
And like
it's the same logic as like, everybody's getting into podcasting around the time. Like podcasting went interest in podcasting went all the way up.
Yeah.
So
I mean, maybe I was just blind to the whole thing, but it does suck because I think there's, like you mentioned, there's probably a lot of diamonds in the rough there that could be exceptional, and it does take veteran talent to be like, you're pretty good. Or you can be good. There's a lot of potential there. And I credit a lot of that, like a lot of my success to Medic and Xscoundrel at the time, because they were like, I think you could be pretty good. And then they like plucked me from the sea of people and helped me a lot at that time.
And people will call that like cronyism, nepotism, right? Because you're literally picking, people that you like. But genuinely, as someone who does a lot of VOD reviews, I feel like I have a very good eye for talent. In terms of when people have potential, I have a very good eye to see when people have potential. It's no secret, honestly. When I with Platchat, right, with Platchat Valorant, whenever we see somebody who's like just up and coming in the scene, if they're like, holy shit, they're actually there's a lot of potential there. I'm like, dude, let's get them on the show, right? Let's get, like, we got Mimi on, we got Bala on. Let's get them on the show. Like we all have that kind of like idea of like when we can see somebody has that spark, just that really good potential. that's just gonna like slingshot them. And I'm not saying necessarily like if you're not on plat chat, you're shit. Like it's not what I'm trying to say, because there's only so many spots. But when we notice that, I feel like I've got a very good eye for spotting talent and that potential. Just because it's only natural, right? When you spend so many hours trying to perfect something like a craft, you get pretty good at spotting that. But it doesn't seem to be the same case with the people who make the hiring decisions. So, I get asked my opinion every now and then about like who are the up and coming talent, like who is there anybody who you should be like who they should be keeping an eye on and things like that, because it's only natural, like that if we're doing VOD reviews and helping people along, then we're going to be able to spot that, and actually elevate them, put them into the proper position. The issue comes from that when people have preconceived biases. Everyone has biases. You just need to try and recognize it and spot it, so that you don't end up just making an all boys club, white man with brown hair moment, like just genuinely.
Yeah.
You're like, you've literally need to be cognizant of that. Yeah. And I think when you are thrusted into that position of power where you literally have direct say to recommend people and influence decisions of who's getting hired, you need to recognize that and actively work towards bringing in people who are not just the white boy squad with brown hair.
I was blonde as a kid. My hair's
I was blonde as
now.
a kid as well at the front. Yeah. Now I'm balding. So.
Dude, you know what? Actually, that just reminds me of that picture you put out. Was it on Discord or Twitter maybe? And you were like, legit genetic diff. And it's just
actual genetic diff.
A genetic diff.
Yeah, me as a kid, hairline. No different. Just fucking... The hairline, exactly the same as a child.
At least it's consistent, You didn't lose it at one point. You were like, well, I just had this. It'd be like that, Yeah,
so, it'd just be like that.
That's really funny.
I look 40 at the age of 5. Yeah, it'd just be like that. I've always looked older. The stress of life taking its toll on me.
The wrinkles and dude, I'm telling you right now. My mum says this all the time, but like I have like my dad's wrinkles and shit, my forehead and my like what?
I don't. You look incredibly young. I don't understand this. What are you talking about?
Crow's feet.
You look you look so fucking. You look like you could easily just. No, listen.
I do look younger, thankfully. Well, you can say like I look like an embryo or something. Like,
no, I was saying like you could easily listen. You can get into the femboy sphere if you wanted to. You got a very youthful look about you. Me, I don't. I just don't. I look fucking. I got like. I've seen great mirth in my life. I've laughed a lot and I've seen a lot of pain, and so the lines have developed.
You look so much younger with glasses, though. You take the glasses off, you're like a middle-aged man that worked in Home Depot for 35 years. You know what I'm saying? He knows his way around a 2x4.
Got my own projects I'm working on.
Yeah, exactly. You're working on your own shed, your own tool shed, and you maybe.
I actually did make a little entertainment system because I bought a PlayStation 5. I was like, I'm going to treat myself. I'm like going to treat myself with buy PlayStation 5 because I really wanted to play Demon Souls. Big Souls games fan. And I was like, I need a way to have my consoles because they were just sat on the floor next to my PC. I'm like, this isn't good. I need like to build like an entertainment system. Yeah, actual gamer moment. So I literally took an old bedside cabinet because I another gamer moment, bought one from IKEA, haven't set it up yet, but I took the old one and I literally have just been dismantling it and rearranging it so that it's like layered. So I've got my PS5 on the bottom and I've got my Switch on the top, and then I drilled holes in the back so that the cables can go through and I can easily just switch out the capture card.
That's so smart.
Little entertainment system there. But that was my DIY job.
I love that shit. Like setting up everything to be really cool and like LED lights and stuff like that. You can kind of see in my background now. It's like a sloped. It's from Amazon. It's like a sloped shelf that I have lots of things. I have like trinkets and stuff.
A ladder shelf.
Yeah, a ladder shelf.
Yeah, it's a ladder shelf. Yeah.
You can't really see, but that's a box. It's a literal box of how many pounds of sand? 25 pounds of sand.
Wow.
Yeah, 25 pounds of sand.
Just as a little snack.
Yeah, a little. Gamers eat sand and dirt.
Yeah.
And so I've got 25 pounds of sand and then loads of aquascaping rocks and like bits of wood and shit like that. Yeah, for like projects and stuff. And I love that kind of stuff. Every time I look at people's game, the man, what is it? The man cave? No.
The man cave.
Man setup. Like, when it's like the fucking mattress. There's two fucking different versions of this. There's the mattress on the fucking floor, $7,000 PC setup in corner, nothing else. or it's like entertainment fucking system with LED light strips, which is what I did to that. Just stuck LED light strips on them to make it look cool.
Some nice ambient lighting.
Yeah, exactly. Ambient lighting, which looks pretty sick. And then they have gaming consoles and everything. And I've kind of got that with my fish tanks, but not really. And there's one or the other, you know what I mean? But I love looking at those setups. But then we were talking about moving earlier. I don't want to move any of that shit.
Yeah, it's such a pain in the ass.
It is such a pain. Like,
if
moving this much shit and desks.
I'm looking around at all the shit I've got. And I'm like, if I have to move to Europe, dude. I just don't know what the fuck I'm going to have to do. No. I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I think I just have to sell everything and buy it again. Like, try and sell as much as possible. But that's just so much work.
Yeah. Like, we paid movers to move into this apartment, and it cost us $1,000 to move everything. But I'm going to be honest with you. If you can stomach the cost, I recommend it. Because I am not moving my own shit again. Fuck that. Like, I'll move my fish tanks on my own because I can clean them all out, get the fish in buckets, apart from my reticulated hill stream loach, by the way. Do not move those fucking fish. They are impossible to get out buckets. You can't do it because they stick to the fucking surface. They can also survive out of water for a little bit at a time as well. So, like, they will stick to the surface. You try and drag them up at the side of a bucket to try and get them in your hand quickly and then plot them in the water or a little net. Good fucking luck, chief. They are stuck there like super glue on fucking wood. It is not coming off. But yeah, I will moving those is just a massive pain in the ass too. So fuck that. You can get professional fish movers though. I did look that up.
Really?
Yep. They'll come around your house. They will box.
Sounds expensive.
I don't know. You have to get a quote because it's like.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because it's like, it depends the size of your fish tank. Is it freshwater? Is it saltwater? How many fish tanks you've got? The dimensions of the fish tank too, because a 20-gallon cube is what I have right now on my big shelf. That's my biggest tank. But now I've got a 22 or 21 long. The long is way harder to move because it's literally long instead of a cube. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass. I don't want to do it. Moving sucks. And
moving does suck.
This is, dude, it's the Pepega house. I was always like, we're going to move at some point. Why the fuck am I going to buy stuff? I had my TV next to my bed, which I got from Josh, who got it from Puckett. This desk, this chair. This desk is Jake's old desk. This chair is Matt's old fucking chair. Still, I'm using this shit.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm just going to have my TV on boxes because, dude, I can't be bothered to buy stuff. I'm going to have to move it eventually. And like, I really had to, when I moved into here, I was like, I need to get that perception out of my head.
Yeah.
I need to just buy stuff to make it feel
have a place
like
you can
home.
call your own.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I did. I bit the bullet because I knew I was going to be in Austin for a while, but might be moving at some point. I don't fucking know. Don't know how much of this year I'm going to be spending in this apartment. Probably not much.
Yeah, I mean,
living out a hotel room.
I really hope it's not a hotel for your sake. I hope it's like an Airbnb because it'll feel a little bit.
It probably will be a hotel.
Yeah, that does suck.
Which sucks. So, but it's whatever. I'm enjoying my livelihood, my work. So comes with it. Yeah.
Look, if we do reach a wise old age, if we don't accidentally die of malnutrition while playing Valheim, I would like to see how far it's come. I want to live to 2077 so I can live like a cyberpunk. You want to just
instill technology into your body and lose your humanity?
Yeah. Would you do that? Would you do that if you had the chance? Like it was cyberpunk level or like near to that level? Would you install tech into your body?
Yeah, if it was pretty foolproof. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not talking Mark 1. I'm not doing a prototype, but if there's been like a couple of generations of people and it's been around for a long time and it's like it's just consistent, yeah, why not? It makes sense, right?
Yeah, like, dude, that's the next stage of human evolution.
We're talking like this is how the beginning of like what is the Warhammer 40k lore of just the fucking. I don't know much about Warhammer 40k lore, but
I watch a lot actually. Yeah.
People keep playing the soundbite of the guy talking about the decaying of flesh and having faith in your flesh. But I believe in the machine. The
Mechanicus, the machine. Yeah, it's probably Luton's voice. Luton's a very big YouTuber on. I listen to a lot of Warhammer 40k lore. I think it's really interesting. We're reading a Tau book right now. I like Tau. I think they're pretty sweet. But yeah, the Space Marines are just super soldiers, genetically engineered to kill, basically. And that, dude, it goes fucking crazy. Like,
it's
more
quite
machine
interesting.
than man. Like
from like a I don't know, just like a feels quite boyish in a way, as you're like, oh, super soldiers, and there's like
Yeah.
aliens and planets and stuff. But every time I get glimpses of the lore on my TikTok For You page, I know nothing about it, but I just see the cinematics and
goes
stuff, and
hard.
people talk about the lore, and it's an incredibly fleshed out world.
Yeah.
I'm a big sucker for world building. Any sort of universe where there's a lot of world building. It's part of the reason why I really like the Souls games, actually. The Souls
Oh,
game
right. Okay.
series is because you don't think it, but all the lore is packed into the items that you find, but nobody reads the descriptions of items.
I didn't
But
know
if you
that. Wow.
once you get into the games enough, you get to the point where you're just like, what's this item description? And it's like some paragraph of like the seventh legion of skirmishers fought this battle on here and left over their spears. It's the only thing that's left of them. And it's like, what the fuck is this? And then you're like, there's other pieces of lore. There's good YouTubers that piece together the lore. It's a guy called Vati Vidya who does
Oh, right.
lore, just hunts all of it out through the item descriptions, pieces together his own interpretations. Because a lot of these Souls games, just across the board, are incredibly vague with the lore. Like there's not much exposition from characters.
Yeah.
It's all kind of, and it gives it this air of like this mythological air, I think, to the games, because like everyone's just kind of like very vague and wish-washy. They talk as if they're quoting the Bible sometimes. Like they could just literally be, a quote from some religious text, but that's the way they all talk, and so it's all vague, and you know, it's a cool series once you get in depth with that. But I'm a sucker for big world building shit like that.
40K is exactly that. Like,
Yeah.
the amount of lore and shit that they release is ridiculous. Too much for one person to consume. I've still got a book on my wish list on Amazon, or a Kindle book, the Horus Heresy.
Are they good books?
The Tau book that I'm reading right now is very good. Like, I think a little bit of it, you do have to kind of know what, I guess you don't need to know what they look like, but like collecting the figures when I was a kid and painting Tau, I was like, man, they're fucking sweet. They got like the Kroots that are like their allies kind of thing. And they're like one of the younger races in 40K. And they're for the greater good. Like they do everything for the greater good, because it's better than fighting your own little like the Space Marines, they have a ton of different chapters, right? But
Right,
like,
yeah.
for the
Internal
Tau,
schisms.
exactly. But for the Tau, they do have their own chapters, but they all come together for the greater good. That is their thing, which is very cool. And they're one of the youngest races, and they were ignored for a long time, because they were like, the Space Marines and whoever found them were like, what the fuck? Like, these guys are so primitive. Like, the fuck, bro? We've got these las cannons, and they have stick with rock. And then they advanced unbelievably quickly, and now they're like a major threat. They're one of the Xenos armies.
See, I don't even know what the factions are. Yeah, you're spitting right now. I'm interested.
I do be spitting. You're
spitting?
It's really cool, because then the books also talk about the orcs too, because that's what, like, this mini, because the book is like a lot of different stories, like mini stories. The book's huge. The Kindle book is fucking massive. And the Tau right now are under threat from the orcs, and it's explaining like how the orcs are basically fucking made, and like how brutish and like horrible they are, and how just
does it carry the lore from
crazy it is.
because Warhammer initially, before 40K, was it all just fantasy based?
Oh, Sigmar. Age of Sigmar, they call it. Yeah, like the regular Warhammer. That's like fantasy. That's like high elves.
Is 40K supposed to be 40,000 years beyond that point?
I don't know if they're connected. Maybe, but like 40K is so, it's like the year 40,000. It's like so far away.
That's what I was wondering. Is it like from that point where it's developed, technology developed? I don't know. I'm a big fan of that in my novels, in my books, where they talk about like literally like ancient history, but it's done well. Because right now I'm reading Malazan Book of the Fallen, which is Josh's favorite fantasy books that he read.
Oh, okay.
And he told me to get on that, and he's rereading them now as well. I'm reading through them, and I'm a big fan of this, because it's just any book where it's hard books to get into, to be fair, because they just throw you in. There's no like a lot of fantasy novels do a very good job of gently lowering you into the hot bath by explaining the world through the perspective of a really young, like just a young character, someone quite ignorant of the world. In the Wheel of Time, it's like a schoolboy, not a fucking schoolboy, but like just some kid from a village in the middle of nowhere, rural village, and he's the chosen one, and all the rest. And then you learn the world around him. Lord of the Rings is a hobbit from the Shire. It's like from that perspective you can learn a lot of the world. that they've created, and that's good. But Malazan Fawn just fucking boom throws you in, and you're in the middle of this empire that's already gone through like one of the emperors being slayed, and like you're like, I don't know, there's so much shit going on that it's quite overwhelming. But part of that is like they explain this world that they're in, and they make references to these elder races that have existed for
Oh, I see.
time, and some of them are extinct, and then some of them are actually, they're not extinct, and they are still around, but just in a much more limited capacity, and all the rest of it. It's very, very in depth, very cool. I like it when they do that. You just have
The
like,
world is really fleshed out.
yeah, really fleshed out. And it's just, there's a clear historical timeline that they've got in their mind when they're building this world. Because it's the same with Lord of the Rings and Wheel of Time. You know, you can see that
Yeah.
inspiration, I think, that's derived from early fantasy writing, like the Lord of the Rings, and the kind of the way it set that, because that was literal. I mean, they're literally talking about ages of time, right? In Lord of the Rings, I'm pretty ignorant of Lord of the Rings lore, but as far as I'm aware, there were like ages, right, of
Yeah.
periods of time, like the Age of Man and everything else, and yeah, that it just adds more character to a world that's rather than just character is here and there's
He exists, or they exist.
he exists in this world, and yeah,
it's the world.
cool.
Do you read any non-fiction books as well, or is it mainly like
Not really.
fiction? No.
I'm a fantasy head. I'm fantasy pilled.
Fancy
I'm just
pill.
like, yeah, I just read a lot of fantasy novels. But
Have you? I don't know if you've ever stumbled across these books. I actually have my Kindle right here. I could bring some up, but there was a time where I was going through. I wouldn't call them self-help books, but they are along the lines of like just trying to change your fucking mind, basically.
yeah,
Dale Carnegie's the classic one, right? The fucking How to Win Friends and Influence People. I'm like halfway through that. Where's this on? Oh yeah, by this U.S. Navy SEAL. Extreme Ownership: How U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win is a book that I read, and I was like, damn, that's fucking crazy. Like, it's just about leadership and like just kind of reprogramming your brain to think about things in a certain way. And I think that for me, I don't know when I kind of got into these kind of books. I don't know why I started looking up these kind of things, but I just did, and it was kind of fun.
it's quite interesting.
Been reading those and the things you can, because obviously his perspective was extremely different to mine, and I was kind of like curious on like how he perceives it. And he takes all his stories from when he was fighting in wars, like in Iraq and stuff like that, and his leadership role within the US Navy SEALs. And I'm like, God damn, like a lot of these lessons I think could be taught to regular people, and I think you'd gain a lot from it, especially about like leadership and like talking to people and how to talk to people and how to like diffuse situations. I always found that stuff incredibly interesting. It's actually only recently that I've got into more like fiction books, honestly.
Really? Yeah, I've never really been into it with non-fiction books, because I don't know. I just haven't, like, of the time I'm reading, I find it more interesting to read about really good fantasy that's being written. But there's a lot to be gained from reading books like that when you read different people's perspectives on things. I just I'm a very my brain is malleable. It's like soft putty. So when I read stuff from people's perspectives and they're quite argumentative, or not argumentative, they're very good at, at arguing like a specific point of view, or like when someone's writing doesn't even recognize their own biases, sometimes I slip into that line of thinking, and I'm just like, and it's only until afterwards, and I'm like, oh, wait a second, like the way they wrote that, now that I'm thinking about it, was kind of weird, their perspective on that. But you just kind of like, I get sucked in quite easily. It's pretty rare that I read nonfiction, but a big example of that was the what is it called? Homo sapiens book, which is literally just like, it's almost like an opinion piece. There's some studies that back it up, but it's a guy talking about basically the anthropology, the history of the human race, how we developed, and our ancestors and things. But the guy speaks with so much confidence at times that it sounds like it's fact, but in reality, it's just theories sometimes. And so he's just like filling in the gaps with that way. And I'm reading it, and I'm just like, I know you're supposed to come at this with a critical viewpoint, and presumably from somewhere else as well, where you're coming at this with prior knowledge. But I'm just like dipping into it because the book was recommended to me, and I'm just like thinking back to it, and I'm like, yeah, that was a weird thing that he was like writing about and was like incredibly certain about in that book that was the case. But yeah,
I mean, that just feels like every headline, every clickbait YouTube thumbnail, dude. It's this thing is true because I said it is. I haven't really got
Yeah.
sources or anything, but my thumbnail says I do.
Do
You know what I mean? Like,
God, do you know what's so funny actually now as well though? Is because
Go
when
on.
I was younger, you're quite impressionable. You're looking online. I'll be like looking at
Yeah.
Reddit and things. You look at the comments of people and just people's comments on any, not just Reddit, just any sort of online system around a topic, right? People talk with so much confidence. They will write comments with incredible amounts of confidence about things. It's like, well, clearly, I mean, I expected this to happen because this is the case. Blah blah blah. It's like, well, actually, like it's like if you look at this, then I mean, what did they expect? Like, of course it's going to go like this. Now that I'm an expert in my field of esports, I love going on like the / game subreddit, which is just all gaming related stuff.
Okay, yeah.
And anytime
Dangerous.
an esports topic comes up, I read the comments on it, and it's literally people saying completely incorrect stuff sometimes with so much confidence. And it made me realize in that moment, because you only realize it once you become like a proper expert on something that you have so much confidence in that you know like nothing's going to rattle that from what they say. I'm reading this and I'm like, holy shit, that is just completely wrong. And so many people are agreeing with them. And that is just, it's just like, what are they talking about? This, and that made me reflect on just the internet in general and just making sure to take everything with a large grain of salt on the internet whenever you're seeing somebody's opinions. But I know that sounds stupid saying it out loud, like, oh, don't believe everything you say on everything you read on the internet. But genuinely, I think it's very easy to slip into that of just like your own opinions getting formed off of you consuming vast amounts of media from other people's opinions. And people do just like kind of tack on to, sometimes very, very confidently written, very popular opinions. But yeah, when you spot it, when you're an expert in your craft and you know, like, wow, that is just completely wrong, and everyone agrees with them and nobody's calling them out, and they're saying it with so much confidence, you're like, holy shit, that is. How many other people are doing this with topics that I've read? You know, that's what I was thinking. That was my takeaway from that.
A million people, especially on like Reddit or like forums or whatever. Dunning-Kruger syndrome is rife on the internet. Like people that don't know anything, but they think they know the most. Like if anybody doesn't know that, I'm not going to explain it, but look it up. Dunning-Kruger syndrome. The people that know the least think they know the most.
Yeah, they have the most confidence in what they're saying.
And they have the most confidence, yeah. And I think a lot of that is, dude, the amount of times I see comments on like commentary about that. I'm like, you can't even tell me what a color caster is. You think I'm a color caster when I play by play. I mean, sometimes you could say that because I do a bit of color in my play by play, but it's just a style of mine. But it's like, you don't know this. So like, yet you're speaking on such authority about this stuff. A few comments at one time, they were like, oh, you and Mitch would be a really good casting duo. I'm like, maybe.
Possibly.
I mean, I've cast with Mitch before. I cast with him last year. Obviously I was the color caster. I wouldn't play by play. We did have a discussion about that, but I said I do color. Like it doesn't really make any sense for Mitch to do color. He's the better play by play out of the two of us. But I think in commentary it's not so much of a spoken about thing anymore. I think people, I don't know about you, but I think people give less of a shit about casting at the moment, at least, or like maybe I just don't see any of this kind of stuff, and maybe because it's off season. But before previous, maybe when I was indulging in that kind of sphere of people and like the internet comments and stuff, I was like, damn, you don't really know much. Like it's kind of crazy. Like talking about commentary at such a high level when you don't know.
Yeah, when people talk about it at a high level, it's like clearly you can't derive anything from it. But I agreed with something that when you were talking to Mitch last episode that you did, I agreed with his point talking about like, well, the public perception, generally speaking, if they don't like somebody, they're generally right about it. Like they understand why. And I think the people watching and listening to like commentary work, they might not know how to articulate what they don't like, but they can understand that something's wrong or that they don't like some aspect of it, but they won't be able to articulate it maybe because they haven't thought about it as much, but they know that they don't like somebody. So when you see that across the board, like they don't like a certain style of things, there's usually going to be some reasoning behind it.
Some underlying issue,
underlying issue. But when it comes to telling how good people are, I think when you put so much focus in our work individually, when we're focusing so much on it, we clearly hold ourselves to very high standards, and we look at things much more in depth compared to what other people look at, right? When they're hoping for commentary work and what they deem as good, and what they deem as the commentary that they like. So
yeah, I think across the board, if I'm not going to say like hated, but like if people dislike a certain way or like a certain style of casting or whatever, then yeah, there may be some underlying problem. And
Mm-hmm.
I definitely agree with those lines. Yeah. I would say a lot of comments that if it's like consistent, I'd say, but like the one-offs every now and then, it's like, oh, you know, they think they know like a lot about commentary. It's like, well, actually you don't. Like that, I guess that was more my target of my kind of quotes there. But yeah, that's kind of an interesting thing too, when the broader audience don't like a certain way of commentating or like a certain style or whatever. And that's, man, I don't know how I deal with that as a commentator, to be very honest. If I was consistently getting feedback that my style of casting was unliked, I'd be like, oh shit, what do I do?
Well, I think, but I don't think you would ever get that. If you did get that from somebody, it needs to be from a place of like not necessarily fighting against that in as a defense mechanism, right? And immediately like shoving away any sort of criticism. But you need to be in a place as a commentator or in any line of work where you're comfortable enough with your own ability, and so you know that you can confidently say like, well, okay, here, you're wrong. Well, okay, here, let me take away what you're saying that's wrong with it, and let me see if that's actually the case, and reflect on that. And an important aspect of that is literally watching other people's work as well. Because I think when you're watching other people's work, even outside of different games, you'll get a feel for different styles. You get a feel for how people match their casting to different flows of games that have different paces. And you'll see, because I think that's what a lot of stylistic differences do boil down to. Like it comes down to how they approach the flow of the game, I suppose, the level of excitement that they place on certain events in during a match. Sometimes like if they include a lot of banter, a lot of humor, things like that. Because I think commentary should always be varied enough to the point where you're not always going in with the same flowchart way that you're doing it in every match, right? Because you want to adjust things based on that. Like me and Josh will tone down the humor with bigger matches when we get them. But
that's a very like classic example. Serious match, tone down banter. Not so serious match, up banter. Like that's that's quite a common way of doing things, especially in like commentary. I think it's quite interesting, and especially looking at other games. I think you spoke about this actually on your stream, and I chipped in a little bit, but it was like, man, the curse. It's kind of a joke, but like the curse of being a commentator, looking at other games and then not seeing the game. Only
I can only hear the casters.
I watch NBA. I'm like listening to the casters all the time, and I'm like, huh. And then I was like, you've got your fucking mic on the wrong way, motherfucker. You're getting paid 20x than me.
Yeah, what are you doing?
Way, bro.
Put your mic on the right way. Put the cable behind your back.
Yeah, exactly. Put cable behind back. Oh, where was that funny image, bro? Of like, I think it was traditional sports people taking the piss of esports or some shit like that. And then someone pulled up an image of two guys, mics on the wrong way, both looking at each other with mics like this on their face. And then their cables in front of them wearing suits. I'm like, the basics are being wrong. Like, you're doing the basics wrong. Like, come on, bro. Like, it doesn't take half a second to put the cable behind your back and shit like that. But like, it is kind of a weird like curse in a way that I'm not really looking at the game sometimes. I'm literally just listening to the commentators, their flow, and like the way they're approaching different things.
I try to find foreign language casts because because when I'm trying to watch the game and trying to break down like the teams and stuff, I can't help but listen to what I like and what I don't like about people's work. But man, it fucks with me. But you can learn a lot from just listening to other games as well, listen to other people. Like I
agree.
Especially I need to watch more Counter-Strike actually, because that's the thing that's most applicable to Valorant in terms of its style and pacing and the way it works on a round by round basis. But I need to listen to more Counter-Strike casters, I think, and just to see how they're doing things over the pond, because that's where the cross-pollination can occur, where you can really start improving as well and taking things away from other things like that. It's one thing I need to start doing, but there's only so many hours in a day, and listen, I got to spend 9 of them playing Bloodborne. So
yeah, exactly, streaming.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fair. Counter-Strike's always been an interesting one to me. The way they flow and the pace of the game. Obviously, Valorant's the same, tac shooter-wise. A little bit different, of course, with abilities and shit, but in general, Counter-Strike and Valorant are pretty same, tac shooter, and the pacing and the way people hype things up is quite interesting. I think one of the big boys in Counter-Strike, Machine, obviously, kind of an expert in everything. He's a fucking beast. Like, he's an exceptional commentator, exceptional host, personality. He's amazing. He's an interviewer as well. And like, goddamn, that guy is just a man of many talents. It's crazy.
Yeah, people who are good like that are actually crazy. I don't know. I mean, hosting as well as a skill set that I'm just not good at. I'm just not built for hosting that much. But I think I also just haven't had a lot of experience doing it. So I don't know. Like, but when we host the Plat Chat podcast, I'm like, what if I'm hosting? Holy fuck! I'm just like, oh, dude. I'm trying to make sure that everybody gets like the talking stick. Sure. But I'm also trying to direct the conversation, and it's like I find it incredibly stressful. I could not imagine it with like a producer in my ear being like, throw the break.
Do this.
Yeah.
It's
Q package. Blah blah blah.
Hosting is way different. I know people in the past have given Zoe shit for her hosting and her hosting style, and I'm like, bruh, it's her third language, by the way. English is her third language. Dude, third. She knows two other languages plus English and then more. And then she also hosting and like trying to juggle everything too. Hosting is a very interesting role with a lot of caveats that people don't really understand because they have producer in ear telling them this X, Y, Z. Do this. We need to do this. Oh, we're not going to do this anymore. So we're just going to need to move on to this. And then you're trying to juggle, like you said, the talking stick. Everybody gets a chance. Like, dude, there's a lot more that goes into the hosting role than people actually realize. And the best hosts, they just make it so seamless. Zoe's an exceptional host. Dash is a very good host. Shocks as well, another fantastic like desk and host talent. Like, there are a lot of people out there that just make it look easy. Yeah. And it is, man. You look to them.
A lot of it comes from the prep ahead of time as well. A lot of prep. Because I was very fortunate to be working like with Puckett as the desk host in
Puckett's another
2018, 2019
GB as well. GB.
Yeah, GB, Puckett. I've very fortunate to be working with those guys when I was like in my esports formative years, I guess, on a desk. Because I literally just learned from the best immediately. Like, I didn't have any bad habits to break. I'd never been on a desk before. So I was just like, immediately, this is like a decade of experience plus from Puckett of him, how he's building his desk, how he's going about the segments, how he's doing it all. And just me, taking it all in and learning from that. And that's actually been very, very valuable in Valorant, actually, because Valorant has been struggling, like I said, from like a talent development perspective. I think that they haven't had like a good leader in like the hosting position, somebody who's like building the product and has a good idea of how they want to build like the analyst desk. Casting is a bit separated from that, but it should be kind of like organically, there should be a back and forth there about like storylines and weaving that in and out in between maps and casters, the analyst desk, blah, blah, blah. But something that Josh is very good at this as well. Josh has been very, very good in terms of taking the initiative with this. But when we got into like Valorant, we immediately just came in being like, here's all this experience. Here's how we've been doing it in the Overwatch League. Like, we're not going to step on anybody's toes, but this is the prep. This is how we plan segments. We should be doing story meetings. We should be talking about this. We should be collaborating on what the points we think are important ahead of time. We should be doing this and the other, because before this, it was a free for all. It felt like when me and Josh came in. I mean, it's not going to be exactly the case, but I think it's the case of any early fluctuating esport game. You have all this talent coming in from different places, different regions. You have the talent coming from different games, and they have different ways of doing it. And the esports, the normal thing for an analyst desk in esports, I'm just going to say it, across most esports, has been very low resources poured into it. Talking Heads podcast, and that's pretty much it. There's some that do it better than others, some that do it worse than others. But the Overwatch League, I thought, was always very good at doing analyst desk segments because it was engaging, usually backing up with good stats, good footage, things like that. We did skits, we did bits when I was on it as well. I still do it, at least when I last watched the desk. And so we would create a good product, a good desk first. Talent come in from other games, and instead, the concept that I was talking about earlier with the ego takes over. Individual moments. We had examples, right? I'm spilling a bit of the fucking tea here, but I could not believe this shit, right? We had examples when I've been working recently where people wouldn't want to share their talking points because they didn't want people to steal them.
Oh my God. Okay.
When we're working on an analyst desk. And it's like the analyst desk doesn't care about, listen, we're all important points to the broadcast, but at the end of the day, this is a team effort. We're supposed to be working together on a product. There was so many bad habits that were instilled to a lot of people that, yeah, it's been, I'm not going to say me and Josh were like, yeah, we took charge and we fixed all of it, because like I said, we came into it, we didn't want to step on anybody's toes, but we've just been doing things our way and trying to lead by example when we've been doing analyst-esque work and things.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think it's still getting there, but yeah, there was some horrific examples now that I'm thinking back to it, but yeah, I probably shouldn't talk about it, but yeah.
I mean, yeah, you don't have to go too much more in
Yeah.
depth. Because, yeah, that in general is very bad when you're not collaborating. Because at the end of the day, it's a product. And you are all part of the product. You are all pieces to a puzzle that needs to be fit into place. And you need to work cohesively. And you need to make a good product. And if you're not collaborating with that, then you're probably doing something wrong. Like, I haven't done a lot of desk work in the Overwatch League, but I was doing it when Zoe was off on maternity. And yeah, it's very streamlined pretty much, because obviously it's been around for a long time, and it's like Johnny was hosting at that point, and at the end of the day, you just go in, oh, we're going to talk about this, okay, and then I want to talk about this, okay, sure, we'll slot that in there, and then obviously this is Hex as well coming in and being like, okay, and then you're going to take your point, Jack, and then Johnny is going to take it from here, then we'll load this package, and then Scott, what do you want to talk about? Okay, Scott's going to then jump into it. Like, it all goes into one, like, oh, you want to talk about that highlight, Scott? Okay, I'll talk about something else. That's fine. Like, man, it comes across in the broadcast like super, you can tell. You can fucking tell. And also, you don't want to throw your fucking host through a loop. You come up with this random thing that you've been keeping to yourself.
Yeah,
like,
but
it's like, bro, like, you're
it reminds me of an
here.
old esports mentality almost, where it's just they have very, very bad habits and instilled ideas about what the desk should be and what the purpose of the desk is.
All for one rather than one for all.
Yeah, and so you end up with just it's a patchwork product, is the term I've been using to describe it, where it's just pieced together. People are piecing together their segments, and there is no thought to the cohesion of it. Whereas it needs to be a collaborative effort. It needs to be back and forth. You have to be willing to, I think the term is like kill your darlings. You know what I mean? Where you essentially, you could be very fond of a segment. You could be very fond of a skit, whatever, an idea that you want to do on the desk. But if it doesn't fit the wider scheme of things, or if there's some overlap here, you need to do it for the good of the whole product, the whole broadcast. And that's why I'm very grateful to like working in that Overwatch League format, because listen, I'm not saying it was we've perfected the fucking analyst desk. There's no such thing. But that kind of structure that was instilled and the ideas that was instilled, which is literally product first, what fits in, what works well, that line of thinking is so different compared to a lot of people have had. And I don't blame any people who have been thinking like that as well. I can't put too much blame on them, because like I said, talent development sucks across the board. There's no good feedback. There's no good leaders who are teaching how to do things properly, how to actually work in a proper broadcast environment. We were lucky enough to have Puckett, who's had over a decade of experience at that point and more, working at MLG, working on various shows, working as a producer, blah blah blah. So he had the whole thing, which was excellent for molding us.
Yeah, like you said, you came in like that wet piece of clay.
Yeah,
could be molded into an individual, and that's you're quite lucky for that. And I think a lot of people obviously don't have that kind of opportunity, but like you were saying, you're pretty grateful for that. And it's molded you to kind of what you are right now.
Yeah,
which is a handsome, strapping young lad.
God, yeah, I'd love to just crush your little fucking head.
That was the entire.
That was the entire time.
POV, you are me in Korea.
Yep. I don't know why. I'm going to crush your head. I was doing that to lots of people.
God, that trip was a trip. Do you remember?
That trip was a trip.
Yeah. We hiked up. We did a giant hike one day, and we hiked up the Namsam Tower, the N Tower, the Seoul Tower, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
And we had just, with Bren's stream backpack, we're all like, oh my fucking God, like crawling up this hill, and there's old ladies just kind of taking a brisk
power past us
up. Yeah. I'm like, bro. And then Swing as well was like, bruh. And she's fucking I'm like,
guys,
Swing,
come
please.
On.
Help, bro. Jade, please slow down. Like, it was, that shit was wild.
That was a nice trip. I enjoyed that a lot.
It was a good time. I do love Korea. I'm hoping we get to go there soon. We haven't really had any Overwatch esport event in Korea in ever. So I hope at one point we end up going back there. I think with World Cup and whatnot coming back too, I think that's also obviously quite exciting. Hopefully we get an event in Korea. We'll see.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, Korea's dope to visit. I'm hoping that I end up working the there's a Japan event in the Masters VCT this year is Japan. So it'd be nice to go back because I didn't really get to enjoy it too much when I went most recently because I had COVID.
Yeah.
I landed there and had COVID. So we were all sickly at the tail end of the Korea trip. Just
that was
drinking
rough,
every
man.
single day
Pocari
because of
sweat.
sweating. Yeah, living on Pocari sweat. But Japan's a cool place to visit. I'm looking forward to going again, hopefully this year.
Yeah, that's either Hawaii or Japan is like my next trip, my next holiday if I take one. One of those two places. I've never been to Hawaii and the wildlife's fucking sick and I go diving and shit like that.
It's close as well to you.
Yeah.
Relatively speaking.
Still a plane trip, but it's it's not as bad.
But you live on the West Coast, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Not
I'm
awful.
looking forward to that. It'll be a good time. Right. This for real this time though. For real.
You want to end it?
We're gonna I would love to keep talking. We'll do a part 2. How about that?
Yeah, maybe.
How about we do a part 2?
Listen, I'm a busy guy.
You're a busy guy?
You have to talk to my agent.
Talk to my agent, dude. So, we're approaching the 3-hour mark.
Yeah, I think this is a good episode. Any more people are not going to listen.
Exactly. So, the retention here is going to be crazy. Also, I'm going to try and chapter this video and try and get every single bit.
Get some timestamps or what?
Get some timestamps, but it's going to kill me. So I'm going to have to
that's going to be long.
Yeah,
just look for when you talk, and then just look for when, skip through when your mouth's moving. You can be
that's what I'm gonna do.
Okay, that's the topic.
Exactly, that's gonna be the plan. Well, we'll see. Well, Bren, I appreciate you coming on.
Of course.
Thank you, sir. I obviously all the fucking Twitter, Twitch, everything. All that
listen, whatever. I don't care. Don't look at me.
Go. Don't care.
Don't follow me. Don't look at me. I'm in my own lane.
I'm in my own lane. Free.
Yeah.
America.
I'm in my own lane.
All right. Appreciate you,
Nothing
Bren.
to plug. All right.
Nothing to plug. That's fine. Twitch.tv/Bren. There you go. I plugged it.
There you go.
Easy money. Easy money. Thank you so much for watching. And I don't know who's going to be next. Also, don't know when this episode is going to upload, by the way, Bren. So it might be
okay.
So I've got a lot.
Maybe when I'm in Brazil or something, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. That'd be a good. That'd be a good time. More Bren for when he's away. All right. Peace. Thank you, everybody.